Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. I'm here with the Council of the Light, or 3/4 of the Council of the Light, or whatever.
Well, we're on 4/5 now.
4/5, yeah. 4/5. Unfortunately, we still have to wait for Gadfly to be able to come back for his usual representation of Canadian culture, other than myself, obviously. Current Canadian culture. I was born in Canada. Anyway, yeah, so we have a fun treat.
Wow.
For those of you who hate your lives and really...
That's the woke police are coming to get me.
Coming. That's Matt.
It's like,
They're coming.
I heard that I'm being spotted by the woke police. No!
Well, it was nice knowing you.
Yeah, it was nice knowing you. It's a great segue into our topic. So, what we currently have is this wonderful video that we're going to be... This is old news. This isn't new. This is from 2021. But I hadn't had time to sit down and actually go over it. And who doesn't want to talk about this, right? We'll probably go through this whole series before Rings of Power comes out with season 2.
Have they announced a release time for it yet?
I'm assuming September, because that's what they did last time.
Because they consider crap over his birthday and death day.
That's if they release it this year. We don't know. It's already like what, 2-3 years away.
2 years.
It's been a couple of years,
Well,
but it's not been long enough.
Sure.
But anyway, we're going to cover something from the Tolkien Society. Thank you, Sage, for your wonderful keystrokes. So here we go. The Invisible Other, Tolkien's dwarf women in the feminine lack. Well, I mean, some women are more feminine than others, but whatever.
It's lacking something.
And I would like to point out that this entire screen you are seeing right here is not my screen. This is not my taskbar or anything. This is literally the quality that Tolkien Society did.
Oh, yeah, you can see it in the video. Oh, my God. Why?
Yeah.
These are not full screen PowerPoint. Slides. It's not full screen PowerPoint.
That it's slide, but they didn't do they didn't drop the taskbar down and everything. So, because there's a way to do your taskbar to where it drops and hides until you go down there.
No. What you do, what they're doing is, I've had to do presentations before. You can make it so the slides are full screen, or the slides are full screen overlay, like your games go. And then what you do is you still spacebar through it or whatever, or remote control, but it overlays over like your video games do.
Yeah. Either way, this lack of professionalism is them, not us. So, I mean, professionalism is not my strong suit, unfortunately. But if they are a doctor or have a doctorate and they can't figure out how to do this without a taskbar in it, I don't know how much emphasis I could put into their actual words. But
well,
honestly,
I mean, doctor, is it of that specific university, or did it actually?
I think Signum University it might be from Dr. Sarah Brown might be from Signum University, but it also could be Signum University was hosting the Tolkien Society.
Yeah.
Because Signum University is an online site.
I'm skeptical of everyone who does these sort of.
To be fair, about professors, they often really suck at technology.
True.
Well, if you can't understand technology, how could you possibly understand your own courses? Like,
I've not yet figured that out. Usually they worked with pen and paper.
You don't even have to
with Quill.
You could hire one person in your entire, if it's the Signum University, one person in all of Signum University needs to be able to do the one tech thing. And it's like, it's a PowerPoint presentation, guys. This isn't difficult. Either way, let's see what they have to say. It's 9 slides, but it's a 30-minute video, so that's gonna be interesting.
9.
All right, here we go.
What's there to talk about for that long?
Hold on. I forgot. I gotta
she's the chair of faculty at Signum University. I have her profile up here. Yeah.
All right, now you should be able to hear it.
So before I begin, obviously, I just want to say
too.
Thank you very much to the Tolkien Society for inviting me to give this paper today. It's very nice of you to have me. So go on The Invisible Other, Tolkien's Dwarf Women and the Feminine
The person answering, welcome, in the middle of her introduction.
So Tolkien's World of Middle-earth presents the reader with changing landscapes, diverse geographical features, disparate cultures, and many different types of creatures. Some are human, some humanoid, some resemble neither. And in many ways, the reader's journey is both across and through species, as these inform an understanding of the cultural tensions and the conflicts that exist within Middle-earth. Throughout the Legendarium, these diverse species articulate their differences through...
I'm already noticing, like, they're using the buzzwords of diverse species.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
they're species for a reason, because they're not the same species. You just have to say species, and you've already covered diverse by nature of the word.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the cultural tensions also kind of sums it up.
Well, it's like saying the same word twice.
Mm-hmm.
One right after the other to point out the same word. Why?
Well,
Don't overthink it.
To them that it means to us.
Okay, Arturian, what I specialize in is overthinking it. That's literally what I do. Weaponize
I know.
culturally specific mores, such as gender roles, attitudes to procreation, and as well as a consideration of their genesis. Tolkien's portrayal of female characters in Lord of the Rings is undeniably problematic. Galadriel may be powerful in her own right as one of the last...
I'm already regretting this.
Me too, like...
We're a minute in.
Problematic.
I want to jump off a building.
I
didn't know that.
In the chat, guys. You want to glance over it?
We'll
know,
probably do that at the end of this.
Would these kind of people say that Arthurian myths from like the 15th century are problematic because they're focused on knights around the round table going on quests? Saving damsels in distress?
Well, I think it's just problematic because there's a lady in a lake, and that's just way too many feminine people. that one female representation in the entire Arthurian legend is just too much, and it's like, but Sage, you are muted. If you were trying to talk.
Oh yeah, fuck. I mean, Lady of the Lake is also maybe problematic because it's a swimming region, and then you usually have over-sexualized women in those situations, right?
Everybody knows that women can't swim, so like this is obvious.
Yeah, but they're not there to swim.
Oh, they're there to have the cold effect. I see what you're talking about.
It's the aesthetics that they are added to the story for.
I mean,
yes,
hey,
the Lady of the Lake is the beach episode of most anime.
Bikini in it or something. I was gonna say she could hypothetically be in like full suit and armor and just sitting in the lake, pops out and like is the rust and just like
could be. But anyway, yeah, it's very problematic.
The modern Lady of the Lake is Greta Thunberg.
Well, that's impossible because she's not female. Anyway,
well, she can nowadays.
Ancient Noldor, who rebelled against the Valar, and keeper of Nenya, the Ring of Adamant, protecting Lothlorien against encroaching evil. She's also, however, idealized in her beauty and in her effect on the male.
I believe we're talking about Galadriel.
Yeah.
Her.
Why is that? Oh, that's.
What?
I was like, did they have an ad?
Yeah.
Arwen is revealed only in relation to
stream.
story.
For
Remaining
that.
at home mostly to sew banners while the hero battles to save Middle-earth until they can be reunited and married. She's required to sacrifice her one power, her immortality.
We're going to do this, actually.
Oh.
I have a way to solve this problem. I should have thought about it earlier.
Everything said so far is wrong, by the way.
Well,
yeah.
Noldor.
Well, there's someone called Galadriel.
Okay, there might have been some facts in there. Who knows?
Something huge.
Her beauty is idealized. Don't forget that, boys. Her beauty is idealized. No. It's problematic.
She's truer than she thinks because technically she isn't ideal. Meaning Tolkien created in his head. They just don't understand that. They think this applies somehow in the real world. You know what I mean? That they have this. I don't know. Could you call it a psychosis now? Like you don't have, just because you read something or watch something or play a video game doesn't mean that instantly applicable to real life. You know,
they all have army food.
That way.
I'm not sure.
it's like you read these people. I hate saying these people because it makes it sound like them, but this this cultist mentality is like everything to them is real. You know, like even fictional stuff is just as real as real stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna turn on the subtitles just so in case people can't hear it very well, because she does talk really quietly.
Well, also in a very annoying way. Let's say it's monotone. It's just not interesting to
It's
listen
somebody
to.
who doesn't care.
Yeah.
Well, I think she sounds contemptuous of Tolkien's work.
Could be.
Okay, I solved the ad problem, and
the ad is more accurate to Tolkien than her work was.
yes, because
there's no real intonation.
Here we go. Oh,
this is wrong. She doesn't sacrifice her immortality.
There we go.
Be with the one she loves, and is all.
I think she's talking about Arwen now.
But she is already with the one she loves. If we see this as Celeborn,
she's still immortal, just in the other way.
Talking about Galadriel. Let's go back a little bit. And
I think we're still talking about Galadriel. And also, Calabrian is just right over there on the other side of the mountains.
As well, the hero.
She just mentioned Arwen, so she's talking about Arwen now.
Middle Earth until they can be reunited and married. She's required to sacrifice her one power, her immortality.
But don't you see?
What she loves.
To die is a gift given specifically to men. It's not a power to be immortal.
Doesn't see it that way, and the elves don't understand that.
Yeah.
That aside,
no, I think the elves do
slumber
understand
until
sometimes.
Well, they don't understand why it's like a gift.
They are no. I'm pretty sure some of the elves wish they had the gift of men, because after one day love dies or something, they can see the world die around them.
As the Catholic faith posits, capital M mystery, the fate of man. So that's the limitation on the elves' understanding, because just as men can't understand the fact that the elves will just keep respawning, to use a modern term on it, in the Undying Lands, they can't understand that the breath of life for men goes somewhere else. Now the Valar know goes back to where Yahweh is.
No, the Valar also don't know. Only Eru knows.
No, but they know that there's someplace else. They have concrete knowledge of that.
Oh yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
But they don't know what the other place is.
They don't know the fate of the other souls of men, but they know that there's more than just a other universe, because they've experienced that.
Yeah.
And is almost an afterthought in terms of her agency within the narrative, appearing only in the appendices. Goldberry is connected to the power of nature, but is depicted primarily through her relationship to male characters. She's Tom Bombadil's wife and the River daughter. Her main role is to be welcoming, provide care and comfort, and produce food for the table.
That's
to be fair, Tom Bombadil's also sort of like that, but
being comforting is definitely a bad trait.
But I found like River Daughter, that's quite neutral. Like that could also imply that the mother is powerful if you just take the title.
No.
They didn't read what.
There's the word daughter in there, which implies.
It implies hetero relationships. Yes, I know.
We can't have those in any story.
And Tolkien specified that Tom and Goldberg are supposed to be mysteries. They're supposed to be mysterious and unknown.
Well, yeah, like even Tolkien's like, I don't know where Tom comes from. I don't know how long he's been here. He's just.
Well, no, he kind of. What he said was in one of his letters is, like, he's put enough information in the published that you could know, like, you can deduce from what he puts there Tom's nature, but he's never going to reveal it. So it's like Jordan had a list like that. He had the list of things which should never be revealed. That he get that. So there are certain things, we talked about this for Wheel of Time. Like, so Tolkien has a shorter list, but Bombadil is one of those things that should never be revealed.
Because I'm pretty sure there was an interview he did with somebody where he's like, I actually don't know about Tom Bombadil. Like, he's a character, he's part of the story, he fits in the world, he's supposed to be there, but I don't know myself.
I don't believe he doesn't know.
It's in his letter. You can. I don't know if it was a letter, but he talks about him in one of the.
He has
letters.
been way too meticulous about everything else. There's no way he doesn't know what Tom Bombadil's nature is.
Well, I mean, like, and when I say his nature, I mean, as in like his relation to like the Valar and everything, and like other Ainur and whatnot. Like, because all that is mentioned is that he's been there since Arda existed, and that's kind of it. So like, he's kind of like, I'd say like, is there a specific year that Treebeard was created? Like, maybe not, but
Yes, Treebeard is definitely created after Yavanna goes to Eru for the
no,
entities.
we know that, but I'm saying like the exact. Moment. Is he the oldest of all the Ents? Is he the Ent that just the other ones died off or left and just faded off into non-existence? Like, is he the oldest living Ent? Is he the oldest Ent period? Like, there's not a whole lot of specific.
Does it matter?
Information. That's my point. Is like it doesn't necessarily really matter, but good authors can sometimes have characters that are part of the story and not know the full details about their own characters because they're not creating characters or letting the story create the characters.
Okay, so regardless of whether that part is true, Tolkien specifically said he intends Tom to be a mystery. Like there's no he put enough information for you to figure stuff out, but he will not reveal the answer.
So, but if he does that, he must know.
No.
The end result is supposed to be.
Because if he creates the character through the story, not through himself, which sounds weird to people if you're not somebody who writes or something.
Yeah,
but
if in order to put in hints enough so that you can deduce it.
Well, he's only putting in enough. He's not putting in all of it. There's no origin story for Tom. He's saying he's always been like this. He's always been here since the creation. Like those are hints at his origin, but they don't tell you anything about his origin. They just say, here's some hints. He can give you hints,
sure.
But he himself is saying, the story created him. I am not going to flesh him out. It's not necessary for the story. And quite frankly, it wouldn't really matter even if he did give us an origin story, because Tom Bombadil doesn't have the effect on the entire overall plot to where it would matter.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice.
It's like they were giving him the ring. It doesn't matter. He just is.
It's like it doesn't have the effect. Why doesn't it have the effect? Well, we don't know. There's no origin saying he's greater than Sauron or if he's whatever. Could Tom Bombadil be technically greater than Melkor? Probably not, but
I mean,
he could have been an Ainur. But again, we don't know. But it's not necessarily. I have the notes and I'm not going to give them as much as necessarily it could be. I let the story create Tom. I like how Tom is. I'm not going to reveal more of him because it's not necessary. And I also don't mind it being a mystery because mystery is okay.
Well, it is, but it's a mystery on purpose.
Well, not if you use it in a mystery box story.
It's not using the mystery box method, no. But mystery box is not the default for mystery.
You know, that works with Wheel of Time.
Yeah,
and,
I think
and
also
Rings of Power.
J.R.R. Abrams.
And basically every film or series in the past.
About the mystery box thing, I think
know.
that has to be a distinction that has to be made between the classical Roman Catholic tradition, where a mystery is not meant to be solved. It just is like something to experience and to undergo, but you can't solve it. It's not a problem, so to speak. And the way that J.R.R. Abrams and so use it is you expect something to happen because they say it's going to happen. There's going to be something.
Yeah, I couldn't really see the book because it's reflective.
Letters with the stuff that was taken out, put back in that they just released in December.
Yeah.
I haven't really read through it yet, but 144. So letter number 144 has something about Tom in it.
I wonder if the new Avatar series is going to have a mystery box story set up.
I watched first half of the first episode.
I was planning on doing that tomorrow.
I've never watched Avatar, so I'm not.
The original series is really great.
Yeah.
I have my doubts about the live action Netflix version. With good reason, probably.
Didn't they get rid of the original creators?
They did get rid of the original creators. Specifically, they left after creative differences. So that's something. But to be fair, that could also be a good thing because they also made The Legend of Korra, which sucks. Yeah. So that's maybe neutral towards the bad. I don't know. Probably bad. But they might have gone woke because they are writers in, well, America. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they specifically changed Sokka's story arc to instead have a character that grows into, for example, respecting women, starting right off as a simp. So
I was about to say that. Is he good? Oh, that means he's going to be a simp now.
No, they strongly implied that when they said
we'll
they
have to
changed.
find out, obviously, right? So this is from letter number 144. Okay. As a story, this is Tolkien in his letter. As a story, I think it's good that there should be a lot of things unexplained, especially if an explanation actually exists. And I have perhaps from this point of view erred in trying to explain too much and given too much past history. Many readers have, for instance, rather stuck at the Council of Elrond. And even in a mythical age, there must be some enigmas, as there always are. Tom Bombadil is one, in parentheses, intentionally.
Okay.
I love that. I love that we have time to think about and talk about on our own, you know. And I did a review of Tolkien's poems because all the poems about Tom are now Lord of the Rings canon. If you guys never read them, well, basically the stories he made up for his kids. You know, Tom Bombadil is a teddy bear. Remember?
Are you talking about the original poem of Tom Bombadil, like the non-canon ones, or?
Well, all the poems Tolkien wrote about him, Tolkien considers them canon. So not all the original stories he told his kids about Tom.
Lord of the Rings.
There's behind me somewhere. I can't turn right now. But I did a review on the poetry of J.R.R.Tolkien or whatever it was called, and he does 3 or 4 poems about Tom in there, and so there's, and I love that we can pull it up and talk about it, and we can not decide for ourselves what Tom means because that's disrespectful to Tolkien, but maybe talk about what it could mean.
We can have like fan theories.
Yeah. Well, no, fan theories are fine, but I would not do what this, pardon the expression, rotten bitch is doing.
No, of course not.
Language
wrong, Tolkien meant something else, or Tolkien was incorrect because of this or whatever.
It's okay, Arturian. We already know he's a bigot. It's okay.
But I want to make the point. I think we'll agree. This doesn't mean we agree with, I mean, there are authors in history who are human scum. You know what I mean? And, like
J.K. Rowling, being a turf.
Yeah.
You can read something wrote.
Well, no, it's because she's a leftist, but that's
No, she's a turf. That's why
that's perfectly acceptable.
It's called sarcasm.
Well, you can read something someone wrote, take a value in what they wrote, and not necessarily value them as a person other than a literary contribution.
Well, you can't do that if you work, though.
Correct.
It's against the law.
Well, let's see if we can get through more than a minute and 53 seconds of this, so we can get it done eventually.
Table. Eowyn begins her story as a shield maiden of Rohan, but ultimately settles for the roles of wife, mother, and Rosie is invisible and she's revealed.
Does she have kids? I don't remember that being a thing.
Who?
Eowyn.
In the expanded stuff, like all the histories and all that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was thinking like it's probably expanded, yeah.
People remember the only published things by Tolkien.
Does she start as a shield maiden? I didn't think so, right?
Well,
she knows how to use a sword.
No, she's a shield maiden.
A shield maiden in that regard would be kind of like your royalty and you're to protect the people kind of thing. That's the definition of a shield maiden. That shield maiden aren't just like a branch.
It's not the female Vikings or.
Yeah, it's not the female.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's basically like when the ruler's away, you're keeping protection over and watch over your people and whatnot.
And she's basically the crown princess of Rohan, so she has to learn military stuff. Yes, because her brother is the heir, because the son died. So she's next in line after the brother.
But that doesn't really mean crown princess, right?
Well, I mean, I'm using a modern way to phrase it, I guess.
Well, I'd say crown princess would be the one who'd be the next one to the crown.
Yeah.
So she's crown princess adjacent.
Yes.
That's the modern term. Anyway,
revealed as Sam's fiance, then wife, then mother to his children. His
How
lord,
dare
words,
you.
after returning
How
from the
dare you,
quest,
Rosie
and a
Cotton.
symbol of the resumption of the natural order to society.
Yeah, because that is the natural order of
Tolkien
society.
giving these female characters
Ah,
no
yes,
age.
a reward, of course.
Brilliant, for
There is a
example.
reward.
Melian's ability to protect Doriath with her protection spell is strong enough to
Melian?
withstand the attempts of Ungoliant to pass through. Beren can only succeed in his
Mongolian.
quest for a silver.
Where's
Mongolian.
these subtitles?
anything about that, but I just think it's Ungoliant, the Mongolian.
And apparently the
They're
Red Baron
racist
went
of this
after his
video.
roll in his plane, I guess. Is that what that next line means?
What?
The Baron can only succeed in his quest for a silver.
The other Baron. The Red Baron, the Bloody Baron from Witcher. He can only succeed in his quest for silver.
Because he has the help of Luthien. She
Yep.
is no pet of Sauron and Ungoliant, her even more
Yep.
fearsome projector.
We went from Mongolian to Mongolian.
Why is it bad that Luthien helps Baron?
Because
Shows that she's a slave to the patriarchy.
Okay, fair. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
She didn't
she's
do it on
wrong
her
again
own.
because Shelob would do exactly what Sauron told her to do. They were fine with her being up in the mountains and guarding that area, but if Sauron told her to do something, she would do it.
Well, he's sure because Sauron's fucking scary.
Maybe, but he's not in a physical form, so how scary?
He is in a physical form.
Yeah.
Well, what point?
Well, not in the movies, but
And not in the movie, but in the book, he has a physical form. He's a giant.
he just needs the ring to go back to his full power.
No, he had that's kind of a myth. He
Is it?
he is
Oh.
always connected to the ring. He has his full power regardless of it. What the ring would
Then
give
why
him
does
is
he
the
want
ability
it?
to take out the elven ring, so to speak. Right? So
Oh yeah, because he can control the others.
yeah. So they would have to take them off and lose the power of the rings, which
Power.
block his forces.
If he has his full power, then if the ring got destroyed, it shouldn't destroy him
He's not destroyed. He's dispersed.
permanently.
what's the
In
difference?
Tolkien's writings, technically Sauron eventually comes back.
I thought he was cast into the
Is-
void,
Nope.
or is it just Melkor?
He's dispersed to the winds,
No,
a
that's-
weakened
that's
wraith. Gandalf
Malcolm.
even comments in the end. He goes,
Malcolm's,
"Tall, he's a formless wraith or something like that." He says at the end of Lord of the Rings.
behind
And
doors
we
and
know
lights.
because of the final battle at the end of time, he comes back in his full power.
Ragnarok.
Okay.
The original like Tolkien's idea for a sequel to Lord of the Rings, what was it called? A Shadow over something or other.
I don't know.
It was
Shadow
whenever
of
you
War.
capitalize the shadow, it's Sauron.
It's the Shadow of
Great
Mordor,
Shadow is
the
Melkor.
video game.
So he had to play with the idea that Sauron would arise in a weakened form sometime in the Fourth Age.
So what you're
But then he
saying
got rid of it.
Sauron is the
So he couldn't do anything against Gondor, even at his full power. Is that
What?
how we should look at it? He was at his full power, but even still, he couldn't fight against Gondor.
Well, he's not indestructible. He knows he can still be taken out by physical means, like what happened at the end of the Second Age.
Yeah, sure. But
So
He
he
needs,
can't-
like,
now, he
super
did take
people
out a half of an army
to do
when
with that.
it says when he broke the siege by himself. But a powerful enough group of fighters were capable of physically wrecking his body. However, if you want to.
But also keep in mind that now there is no last alliance of the elves and men, so to speak, like the last alliance battle, to where it's literally him showing up at Minas Tirith. He could just be like, "I'm here with a massive freaking army."
Well,
I have."
remember, he knows that the heir to Isildur is out there, and that's someone of the power who could take him on 1-to-1.
If he made it to him, yes, but nothing says that he'll successfully make it
Yeah,
to
but he
him.
can just run away if he meets him, right?
The argument, remember, Sauron is flawed too. The argument can be made that had Sauron just waited things out, he would have won the long game.
I mean, he could have, but if showing up yourself guarantees something, it would make more sense strategically to do so.
Okay, so he shows up, and then Galadriel, Elrond, Gandalf, Saruman, and what's his face all show up. 3 of them die, and then 2 of them take out his body again, and he's stuck.
Yeah, but what are all his spies for if he can't even tell where they are?
Well, I mean, to be fair, he can't tell where they are or where the ring is.
Don't you remember when his Orcan spies thought there was an elf lord running around in the mountains because Samwise had the vial? They're not the best spies.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, no, I can. Yeah,
I mean, plus remember, Glorfindel is still there. Glorfindel took out a Balrog 1-to-1. That's another power that's sitting there that Sauron knows about.
Did he take out Captain of the Balrogs?
No, that was Ectelion.
Ectelion. Yeah. Okay. I was just like,
didn't Glorfindel die to a Balrog and then return to Middle Earth?
Yeah. So Ectelion fought a whole bunch of Balrogs, I think, and eventually slew the Lord of the Balrogs in the Plaza of the Fountain.
That was Fëanor. He was fighting his way through an army.
No, I'm talking about when Gondolin's attacked.
That might happen too, but I'm saying the one who got lost only when Gothmog showed up was Fëanor. In other words, he was fighting his way ahead of the army.
Later killed Gothmog
and was beset by like a horde of Balrogs. That's my
died in the process.
Yeah. And Gothmog wasn't killed by Fëanor.
Gothmog killed Fëanor. Fëanor lost because Gothmog showed up.
So Ectelion is actually better than Fëanor, it turns out.
Well, it turns out that being a really good smith doesn't make you a really good swords person.
Yes. But Ectelion fought Gothmog and a whole bunch of other Balrogs, I think, when they breached Gondolin, and eventually killed Gothmog and died in the process. Glorfindel defended the people who were running away and fell together with a Balrog that he killed into a chasm and died.
Yeah.
And then was fast traveled back.
Respawned and came back.
All the other elves are like, respawn in 3,000 years.
It's interesting to point out the first elf to be reborn and come out of the halls of Mandos was Galadriel's brother.
Items that lets you instant respawn.
Oh, he bought microtransactions.
Yeah, so, he did the pay to win.
Well, this is an interesting note. The elven respawn only started happening near the end of the first age when Fingolfin? No, not Fingolfin. Who's Galadriel's brother who died, saving Beren on the quest? Finrod?
Finrod?
I think it's Finrod, yeah. So he died. He was the first elf to be reborn out of the halls of Mandos. And that was within the last 600 years of the first age.
So he could only just started with his dads near the trees are now dead. So, yeah.
I mean, the Noldor weren't the brightest in long-term plans. Let's put it that way.
True.
But anyway, continue.
Yeah. She cannot be controlled even by Melkor, once the most powerful of the Ainur. Éowyn may choose to lay down her sword at the end, but this does not make her weak, especially when one considers her strength.
She was never weak.
Why is it a problem?
The argument.
The will throughout the text to this point. In other words, it would be far too simplistic to simply dismiss Tolkien as a misogynist. As ever, there is greater complexity here. Issues regarding the depiction of female characters in Tolkien's work have been well covered in the past by various critics, from Edwin.
No, she said you can't just say it.
I know, but the fact that she even brought it up, why bother bringing it up?
The entire past 2 minutes have been waste of time.
There's nothing of substance here.
I mean, she's a doctor at Signum University, so obviously she's clearly a buzz.
Sure. Well, there can't be, because she doesn't understand the source material to begin with.
That's also fair.
To be fair, there are a few people who can.
Yeah.
You three.
There's also been some excellent scholarly work done on the question of gender in Tolkien's Legendarium.
Okay, name one scholar that's done excellent scholarly work on.
Well, I assume
there's a couple. There's
the Gondor in transition one is part of the list for her.
Then there's the other guy.
I don't think Tom Shippey went and said on gender in the Lord of the Rings.
Sorry, what?
Oh no, not on gender. I mean on the valid part of gender. Sure, I'm sure he wrote something about it.
Scholarly work done on the question of gender in Tolkien.
But that's silly because gender is a nonsense concept.
Well, no. Listen to what I'm saying though. Actual Tolkien scholars could have commented on the so-called gender issues, but not in the nonsensical way they're talking about it. there are valid reasons Tolkien didn't give women these prominent roles.
I'm saying that there are no scholars that went out and created a specific work saying on the question of gender in Tolkien's Legendarium. They might have it shuffled in one of the chapters mentioning like this is why the women behaved in this particular way or blah 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 blah, but like it's not like a whole work specifically on this. Like she's saying that some are. Now keep in mind, she probably believes, assuming it's a she, I mean whatever, assuming that Tolkien has female characters and has specific gender roles or whatever. She's saying, again, she is saying that there are excellent scholarly work done by Tolkien scholars, but her idea of a Tolkien scholar and what you and I consider, like I consider Tom Shippey.
We agree on that. I refuse to let them steal words like gender. I refuse. So that's why I bring the point of bringing.
Well, I'm not even arguing the gender part. I'm more arguing they're stealing the Tolkien scholar word. But yes.
And a great starting point is the essay, The History of Scholarship and Female Characters in J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium, a feminist bibliographic essay by Robin Ann Reed.
But that's instantly dismissed because it's got feminist in the title. So
yeah.
What is it? Who's dismissing it? Clearly misogynist.
Us.
Yes.
Yes.
Also, who the fuck's Robin Ann Reed?
Never heard of it.
She's a Tolkien scholar. How do you not know this?
What if it's what if it's
Tom
C?
Shippey.
Well, I mean, Tom Shippey's the most world-renowned, but there are other Tolkien scholars. But then there's
surely
Tolkien
not.
scholars.
Published in that excellent work, Perilous and Fair, Women in the Life and Works of J.R.R. Tolkien. And in this, Reed offers a detailed list of work in this area of study, starting in the 1970s, where only 2 essays meet her criteria, and on through to the 2000s, in which, as she comments, during the first decade of the 21st century, 23 articles and book chapters were published on Tolkien's female characters.
Okay.
Significant increase.
No, the 21st
Do you get what happened though?
After the 2000s.
No, go back to what she said about the 70s. We were just talking about this. Like other people have written about women in Lord of the Rings, but she's discounting those because they don't agree with her ideology.
Yeah.
So there are only 2.
Yeah.
Also, great slide design.
It's terrible. Like
It looks like it's copy pasted from Wikipedia.
big blocks of text, and she's not giving the time to read. If it was important,
she's also not talking about stuff related to it. Well, I mean, I guess it's vaguely related, but these titles don't really fit, I think.
The History of Scholarship on Female Characters, J.R.R. Tolkien.
Like, why is there a random one about race and cultural history when she's talking about...
She's got to talk about it, man. Like, give her a second.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Reed looks to Dimitra Feeney, who in her 2009 monograph, Tolkien, Race and Cultural History.
Dimitra Feeney is a...
Oh, it's the one on the middle. Yeah.
Dimitra Feeney. I've heard, I think, both Robin Ann Reed and Dimitra Feeney on the Prancing Pony podcast, and they didn't sound crazy when I first heard them because they didn't bring up any of these topics. They were talking specifically about whatever the podcast is talking about. So,
okay,
it's
Varies to Hobbits, observes that Tolkien's scholarship has started afresh during the last few years, and posits that one potential reason for the rise in academic interest in Tolkien's works is, quote, the boundary between literature and fiction that appeals to mass audiences has become blurred, especially with the advent of theory and cultural studies. In this context, Tolkien can be rediscovered and reanalyzed in a serious way, a process that has already started in the last few years.
I would like to point out it has not been rediscovered or reanalyzed in a serious way. It's been rediscovered and reanalyzed in the preferential way.
There has been an attempt to deconstruct by these people.
As I'm trying to be a cultural theologian this semester, I can agree with analyzing cultural works. It's the reanalyzing part that gets me, because
there's whenever they mention something specifically, when they mention theory as a noun that stands on its own, usually they mean critical theory.
Yeah.
which is of course not a good thing.
They're specifically framing it in their idea rather than understanding how it was framed in the past.
Well, that's how I mentioned it earlier, where it's like rediscovered and reanalyzed in the way they prefer. It's their preferential way of understanding it, not how you would understand it if you looked at it from a contextual. Like, if you look at a history list of like the Roman Empire or something, because we all think about it every week. So, but if you're thinking about that and you're like, oh, well, I think this means this, you can go find 100 scholars minimum of people who have like looked at it and broke it down and like, here's the cultural context, here's the ancient cultural context compared to the modern context, here's the linguistic context, here's like, they break it down so freaking far. And it was like, we have that through Tolkien himself with his letters, from everything he talked to Christopher, and just there's so much context we have, and he specifically mentions his faith, he specifically mentions his growing up years, his creativity, his imagination. There's a lot of things, but also the mythos and mythologies that he loved growing up that he wanted to integrate into this for a specific purpose, aka a mythos for England. So them saying we rediscovered, reanalyzed in a serious way is implying that Tolkien and anyone who has read Tolkien since it was created didn't do it in a serious way. And only now they themselves, the chosen ones, have now.
Well, of course, before they didn't know about feminism yet, so how could they?
Or how important other races are.
Back then, women didn't exist.
Maybe that's why there's so few in the Lord of the Rings.
They were an anomaly.
But Tolkien's portrayals of female characters were problematic, possibly because his own views on gender were essentialist, as discussed by Anna Small in her Gender in Tolkien's Works entry in the 2007 J.R.R. Tolkien Encyclopedia.
All right, so why is gender essentialist bad?
Well, because
explain,
women
please.
Just chattel.
That's not part of gender essentialism, I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure it is, because I'm pretty sure.
No, I don't think so. Let's look it up.
To overthrow the patriarchy, and gender essentialism basically doesn't let them do that. So clearly, that doesn't.
Let's see. Gender essentialism is a theory which attributes distinct intrinsic qualities to women and men.
Yeah, I was about.
Women don't have distinct qualities from men because women can do anything that a man can do.
Oh yeah, no, I can see why.
The average woman is not going to lift 40-kilo hay bales, but
I could understand, Sage, how you could misunderstand this. But you clearly
it's real. It was made up by crazy people.
True.
The average man is totally having a period every month.
No, but wait, are they not?
So they claim.
I'm having my period right now.
They have.
I thought I was abnormal by not having them. But...
they have tampons in male bathrooms now because.
Oh yeah, true.
Men bleed when they poop.
Well, no, that might be part
only after eating Taco Bell.
Yes, definitely after Taco Bell. But
see,
if you're bleeding and it's not from pooping, that means you have to go to a doctor ASAP.
Letter to his son Michael, in which he reveals his belief that part of women's, quote, subservient helpmeet instinct is, again, quote, to be receptive, stimulated, fertilized in many other matters than the physical by the male. If a
what
small
does that even mean?
It means procreation.
It means a slave for the bedroom.
In such an awkward manner.
Because it emphasizes the slavery.
Oh yeah, okay. Subservient was the first word, that's true.
Treated so poorly by having everything taken care of for them.
No, see, I also don't understand. Well, I do understand it, but I think it's silly. The whole war against, for example, biological essentialism, which is, I assume, what gender essentialism is a smaller subset of, because it's self-evident that biology determines the way people are, right? Does it not?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, and here it says like Tolkien sees the male as actually active and superior, while the female is passive and subordinate, is mostly because of the nuclear family and how it's been around since the dawn of mankind. Because if it wasn't, we wouldn't exist.
I think
The
you can make,
nuclear family not quiet, but yes, like
I mean, like a parent. There's parents and there's kids. Like the mom has to, like somebody has to take care of the kids if
Yeah.
the husband.
yeah, no, I get that, but it's more
Not-
common that community
Family.
does it, but you have the parents that are the main providers for the children,
yeah,
but
the-
it's still
the
raised
older-
by the village.
Well, yeah, but there's too many idiots in the village.
Oh no, that's why you have the
Nowadays.
parents to filter out the good influence from the bad one.
A typical community would be like your parents raise you,
Mhm.
you become of the age to work, and if you stayed in the same community, when your parents retired, you would take care of them, but they would
Yeah.
like watch the kids or something while you're doing work or going out on conquest or whatever it might be. And it was
Yeah.
just like circular family. Like they didn't turn it necessarily into a community as much as they did like a farmstead. Where like in Wheel of Time we see like one family that has like the parents. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure we talked about the stage recently.
Yeah. And then we end up with let's see, what did we get? 19,000,000
Less people than
518,000 people.
yeah, it was pretty crazy.
I can
But-
concede to that, yeah.
But it's like a farmstead. You have the patriarch and the matriarch of the family,
Yeah,
which is the
yeah.
original parents. Then you have their kids. And then their-
Population
and
growth
they actually
amount.
get-
Yeah.
they have-
There's a whole pull you up real quick for that. Show
Oh,
that
cool.
picture again.
This here is a calculation based on Matt's premise that you start with roughly 5,000 people after Manetheren dies, and then with because we know there's a whole bunch of people with lots of kids. If we assume a standard growth rate, we end up at the end here with 19,518,000.
It's the amount of generations
504.
between
That's
two rivers.
That's 20 generations. In
But the two
20 generations, you go from 5,000 to 19 million. If you have
Well, that's if they all
kids
live,
per
though.
couple.
I mean,
If they all live, that's true.
Yes, assuming they all live. But even if you assume they don't all live, that's still in that time period not equivalent to what is actually showing in the story. Because like the two rivers, each of the towns is roughly around 1,000 people. Like they're not big towns.
There has been an Andorran genocide.
Basically,
well, there were succeeding wars and stuff after that. I mean, I don't want to get lost in that topic, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we took
you know, like
what
for
was
example,
it,
my
2.5
own family.
hours last
I'll give you an
time.
easy example. My mother's parents, basically, right? My mother's mother, her family came to this country after their first two babies died, right? And then my Aunt Vita died when she was 12. So that's 3 out of the 9 kids or whatever that died before they were.
Yes.
Yeah,
but
here's
here's
the man, but there's still then 6 left over.
But
yeah.
that's part of why you have so many kids.
Yeah,
But remember, some of them were sick but lived because we had modern medical treatments.
Well, but here's the
One of my aunts would have died as a teenager if they didn't have like modern surgery in the 50s or whatever, you know.
Mhm.
So I mean, now go back to Manetheren. They don't have anything resembling.
Yeah, but we assumed that
we
only
assumed
3 survived.
against the better argument. We steelman the argument.
Yeah.
Because originally it was about, how many different ethnicities and phenotypes were involved, and over 20 generations, which is the time frame from Manetheren's fall to the two rivers in the current time, what would all the two rivers look like? And
Well, they don't look alike because they would have bred together for however
yeah,
thousand years.
they would have bred out the extremities. That's what we came to the conclusion of. But to steelman it, what we did is we broke down how many kids they had, and we're like, okay, like instead of them losing a whole bunch of kids or whatever, like let's give them the benefit of the doubt that more survived. Let's give them the more because we're trying to increase the chances of their particular exclusive phenotypes and ethnicities to survive and thus be the predominant one. So we were giving them the benefit of that. And then when we got to the end of it, we got either way too many, way more than what's actually in the story. And so the story is like, this is not how, like, you went from presumably a remnant of a remnant, and we did the percentages and stuff historically based on whatnot.
Of course, and yeah, we the historical percentages were a lot more reasonable because they don't
There are okay.
have a 1.5
I'm
growth
remembering
rate.
this
so-
dimly, because my second stint in college, my teacher had a PhD in applied statistics, and we're talking about the context of all time, but there's a whole field of study about population calculations historically. Like, you know how, like, you could say, they say, well, there's, there have been over like 100 billion people who lived or whatever, and since the beginning of time, that type of number. Like, there's a whole field of study, he said, where they can factor in estimated losses between childhood, average lifespan, loss to predation, because sometimes people are hunted by lions or whatever. Now I don't know it personally, but he said it's out there, and you could, like, just said you have population growth statistics, but that's the context. We're talking about population growth, not human population growth, but how population.
Yeah, but that's way too complicated. So they already did all those calculations, and now we have an average growth rate. Yep. So we just use that and call it a day.
For those who are listening, if you're curious about, there's a whole field of scientists who did that work.
Yeah, but what we're saying is we took like the historical methods and stuff like that. We broke it down.
Yeah. We ended up with a much more reasonable number, we assumed we needed to get 3,000 to populate all of the Emmonsfield villages.
How a remnant of such a large country like Manetheren, which would be massive, because historically you use about 10% of your population in your military, and their military was like 100,000.
No, but they should just go watch the video about it.
Yeah, you can just go watch the video.
Because we're back to Lord of the Rings though with this, with Lothlorien, right? Lothlorien is at the time of the end of the Third Age.
Yeah, but elf growth rate's not the same as humans.
Yeah, no, that's a bit different.
So the population of Lothlorien comes from the surviving population of Sindar elves in Doriath and Galadriel's older followers in Doriath, who after the wars of the First Age and the Third Kinslaying fled that area and eventually settled in Lothlorien, right? So they go from hostile populations, because the Sindar and Oldar didn't really like each other a lot, to a relatively homogenous group who probably marry each other and whatever by the time we get to the Third Age. Populations, even in fantasy, I'm not sure. I don't think Tolkien was reading about population mechanics or whatever, but he's smart enough to know that if you put people together, they will breed together.
Yeah.
Well, but I think we can figure that out. But if the breed rate is really low on elves, the quality chances of them breeding out of extremity will take thousands
but
of
years. I thought Lothlorien was actually mostly made of the elves that stayed behind and never went into Beleriand, right?
No, it's made up mostly of the survival of Doriath. Like because Celeborn's like the closest thing to the king of Doriath that's left.
Yeah, sure, but
so after the wars of the First Age and then the Kinslaying, they had to flee out of Doriath,
No, there were a whole bunch of Telerian who never crossed the Misty Mountains.
Those are like the elves of Mirkwood or the elves who are.
Yeah, but they're also in Lothlorien.
Some of them are there, but Lothlorien was founded by Celeborn and Galadriel's followers from the survivors of Doriath.
Okay. Before we get
sure about that,
hold on.
It's in the Unfinished Tales.
Matt, go watch the video that we did after you got off that one time, because it's 3 hours. I put up a separate video of it. And you'll see
we
how
we talk a bit into circles though at some point. So
we do, but that's part of the fun of it.
Exactly.
But we were trying to calculate it as honestly and in favor of the opposing argument of like the two rivers is really diverse. We were trying to argue in favor of that and do like the steel man of the argument by giving them the benefit of the doubt rather than going hardcore realism and saying, okay, in favor of you, this is what you would have. We just went through the whole procedure and we came to the conclusion there's no way it would have ended up in only 3,000 people. And like that'd be like a mass plague breaking out every generation like 10 times and killing off.
Well, here's my answer to that, right?
They have wise women. They have wise.
The Wheel of Time is a dark fantasy. Okay, yeah. So Jordan, the reason there's only 3,000 people in Two Rivers is because they get killed a lot. Everyone dies wars all the time.
We don't see any.
Nothing's there to kill them.
Any
they have
examples.
Other humans.
But there's no history of other humans getting to that area because until Tyr and Fair,
like entirely isolated.
At the time we read it, yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if they did, somebody there would have been like, "Yeah, like you don't think that Moraine would have been like, after Manetheren was fallen, you guys came here, you survived. Oh, but let me mention all the 16 billion armies that came through here and just laid waste to you guys. You just kind of recovered." not once is that mentioned. There's nothing mentioned of it, so it would be an argument for silence to say that.
Argument is
surely the wine spring
did
inn
it
wouldn't
not
have
occur,
survived
you know?
that long.
Well, the whole town, all 3 towns wouldn't survive. But even if you did,
Yeah, no, but
80% of the
Hemonsfield is mostly made of houses built that you can't distinguish how long ago they were built. Only the wine spring
Plus,
inn
a lot of the
is
young people in
specifically
those towns
mentioned to
probably
be
went off to
massively old.
you know.
Yes, but even if you went like super crazy, 80% of the finalized amount of people that should have, like, let's say 80% of the total. Remind me, say what the total was. What was the total we came up with for 20 generations?
Wait, your first initial assumption of 3 children per
Just the
household?
roughly average, yeah.
That would be 19.5 million.
Okay,
And the
80%.
math is fine. I'm not disputing the math.
My point is 80% of that dead from plague, wild animals, hunger, starvation, all that kind of stuff, drought, whatever it might be. Even other,
You would still have 4 million left.
You'd still have more than 3,000.
Yeah,
So,
4 million.
And we already know from their own
Well, we
mouth.
know then that something else must have occurred because there's only 3,000.
Yes, or they had a more realistic growth rate.
Or he didn't account for that because country folk don't have much else to do
See,
other than
that's you. That last solution is you changing his writing.
How are we changing his writing?
In other words, he said there were 3,000 people, right?
Well, not really. We assume
whatever he
there's
said there was.
3,000 based on the amount of villages and people.
There's 3 villages, and on the size of them, they are not very large villages. 3,000 is actually, in my opinion, a high count. Like a very.
Regardless, let's just say there's 3,000. So we don't have to debate it, right? There's 1,000 in each village, right? So that's a hard fact, right? So that means something must have occurred to limit the population.
I agree.
Yeah,
but our point was that
the idea was, well, if there's nothing, what would be the growth rate, and how?
Gentlemen,
we did a section of going 3,000 and went backwards, but you can see that in the video because that'll take an hour to cover. But what we did is we tried to base, because the initial concept was, if the 2 rivers was diverse, like in the show, what would you need percentage of people?
Oh, correct. Yeah. That again, I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what we're saying is, like, it's nonsensical because of that and many other reasons to get to that amount of people.
The idea was we need to have very few people in the beginning.
Yes.
That's it.
Basically, you'd have to have very, very few. Like, a remnant of a remnant wouldn't even cover it. It'd be like a remnant of a remnant of a remnant of a remnant of a remnant to the power of like 10. Like, it'd be a massively small percentage, like 2
That's
people.
or we have significantly overestimated the total population of Menethrin back in the day.
Let's assume a man survived and they had their kids from there. They'd still have more than 3,000 by the end of 20 generations, I would assume.
Well, but like I
If
said,
they all survive, yes.
Yeah,
If they all survive, yeah.
Something had to keep it simple. And again, the nonsense of the show, I don't even. You don't even need to go as far as you guys did to dispute the show's nonsense.
Of course not.
Okay?
I have weaponized autism, good sir. I will go as far as.
You could look at the real world population. Like, I live in an inner city, right? There's Hudson County area, New York area, and of those of us who've been here for say, let's say the year 1908 when my family came over, right? By the time you get, they were all purebred for their region of Italy, right? By the time you get to my generation, I'm technically a mutt. I'm 1/4 Benaldese, 1/4 Sicilian, and 1/2 Calabrian, right? That's considered a mutt to my grandparents' generation. You know, so, and that's in 100 years, I've interbred with other Italians, so to speak, in my genetics, right? My 2 cousins, they're that plus, instead of Calabrian, they're Irish, right?
We're not necessarily talking about their ethnic background.
Well, what I'm saying is, even inside of 100 years of real world example, right? They've already crossbred to the point where they're starting to blend features and whatever. So now imagine how many thousands of years since Menethrin fell. They'd all be the same color. They'd all be the same height range. They'd all be the same. The real world alone proves that nonsense in the show is wrong.
Yeah, but we broke it down through the eyes of the Wheel of Time world and history and such, and then we broke it down based off of the time available, what percentages of what you would expect for a growth rate for a village, and considering we know some examples of like that farmstead that I think it's the Alcines or the Alcines cousins. I don't remember which one it is. That Perrin goes to after they rescue them. What?
Why did we settle on 20 generations again?
Otarian has given us a gentle reminder that we're off topic. So I will say it's because our topic is far more interesting than this.
We said go watch the video.
Then we do need to finish this dwarf video.
So Matt, go watch the video, and then we can have like a separate discussion on that. But anyway, here we go. Tolkien, not Robert Jordan.
Reveals that Tolkien sees the male as naturally active and superior, while the female is passive and subordinate by instinct. Then we should probably not be surprised
in the letters
resonating in his writing.
I mean, it says there in this letter.
It says it's an entry in the J.R.R.Tolkien Encyclopedia, assumedly a quote of one of his letters.
So they're misinterpreting something he wrote to say something else.
It also says small
probably.
a.
That's
notice.
Well,
Here's the trick that they do, by the way. They don't give the original reference of the letter. They give the quote, the reference to the person bastardizing what was said in the letter.
Yeah, so I don't really believe that this is what Tolkien said himself, surely. Right?
You know, that's exactly what Tolkien scholars do.
Yeah.
It does not seek to explore whether Tolkien was anti-women or a misogynist or simply a man entrammelled in the opinions and beliefs of his time. Instead, the purpose of this paper is to examine specific concerns that relate to the gender in Middle Earth.
I give her credit for one thing. She used the word entrammelled in a sentence.
Yeah.
That impressed me. I admit that impressed me. You continue.
I can agree with that.
With particular reference to the absence of the maternal figure, the issue of procreation, the lack of female.
Well, obviously the absence, that means they're not there because there's only...
Oh, that's right, because dwarves pop out of holes in the ground. Yeah.
They pop out of holes, they spring out of holes. You can call them a spring roll if you want to, but...
Female presence within the narrative. Female...
because they live at home. There's only a single dwarf in the Lord of the Rings that we see.
Independent, and they don't stay at home all day and just frolic and make food and clean their house. That's not what women do. Women go out and kill orcs and slay snow trolls and ice trolls and stuff.
And they dig in the
but
mines.
Those live in the mountains.
They also dig in the mines because obviously all the dwarves that dig in mines are all women.
Yeah.
Tell them apart from the men, remember?
Wait, that sounds like slave labor, though.
If I remember correctly,
slave labor as long as the women are the predominant force.
Fair enough.
If I remember correctly from some of Tolkien's writing, the dwarven women are active in dwarven society. They just don't go to war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
and they're also in a much less... so, for example, in humans, it's basically 50-50. But in dwarves, I think it's like 20-80.
Yeah, there's less dwarven women for...
And so the dwarves see them as...
valuable.
Valuable, yeah.
Well, even
does need to be protected, so they stay at home. And if they go outside, they disguise themselves as men because they're basically indistinguishable.
Because so many people are lusting after those lusty.
Because the dwarves they keep them at home because they're afraid that the others would otherwise want to steal them.
Yeah, that's how that works. But
that's how the elves came for the dwarven women.
Exactly.
That's why there's a real gripe between the two. But no, like in one of the, I think is it Archon, the guy for Warhammer? I don't remember his name. Archcast. In one of the Archcast videos, they were talking about why aren't there female space marines? And it's like, well, because why would you use inferior soldiers? Because if they
if they use dwarves, maybe it would make sense.
Well, hold on. If you're using male or female, and then you superpower them up, well, male will by default biologically surpass the females in war capacities. Because it's just how they're built biologically. And they're like, well, what about space magic? And I'm like, well, then you're leaving the realm of any realistic reason of why things happen the way they do. Like, even the space magic we have
if the space magic is specifically boosting their physical capacity, males are still on top. Yeah. But if you just use space magic, as in casting spells and such, that's why women are more acceptable in those situations.
Like space marines as space marines, like being physical brute force and stuff like
with
size.
I know what Space Marines are. Yes.
I know what I'm saying, in that capacity, as opposed to just going Excalibur or whatever they say wizards say. I don't know. Fireball.
I think that's a spell.
Turfaramus.
With the Warhammer Space Marines, one of the most reasonable conclusions I'd heard is that even if you had female Space Marines, they'd look like fucking men. Like the testosterone and all the other attributes, they'll drown out the female parts.
It's
from
basically trans people.
But here's the
I
thing,
know a lot about Space Marines.
in the situation of the grim dark that is Warhammer 40k, you're using women in society, and again, it's part of the grim dark. It's not an ideal situation. It's literally humanity stopping the breeding. Why would you use literally the breeding incubators of your like that as you would see them in 40k that are what get you more?
No, but they have the same status as the dwarven women, right? They are valuable.
No. In Warhammer,
They need to be protected.
Species that breed with male and female procreation always value the women, because the women are the only ones who can do it. The men can't. But if the men are going through a meat grinder like in 40k, you're losing them at ginormous rates, which means
exactly. And especially in that situation, you want to keep the women away from war.
Yes.
In 40k, it's actually just because of the sheer scale. Like, they've got entire hive worlds just dedicated to repopulating armies, and some females. You can just take that loss. It's fine.
But here's the thing: it's a grimdark, and people are like,
I don't know those details as much.
But that's a grimdark reality, is what Arch was saying about it. It's like, it's a reality. It's not an ideal. Like, could they be more efficient? Yes. Could it cost them all of their civilization and species? Yes. Which is why they don't do it. So, like, if
also, why would you want to?
Now, hold on.
Ask the Dark Eldar. They just have cloning vets. You don't need women then.
That's a whole other thing we're not going to get into, because I don't want to get the misandrists attacking us. But either way, the point is that women are valuable because of their procreation abilities. Dwarves have very low recovery rates, but they're higher than elves. Elves have a super low recovery rate. Mankind has a really high, like, we're rabbits and rats and mice.
But it's lower than orcs, right?
Yes.
But orcs also go through a rape procedure, so it's not like
true. That's a thing.
They have a limitation. They're like, boom, you're pregnant. How long does it take? If it still takes 9 months for them to pop one out, I don't know if elves are even 9 months. I don't know if it takes years for an elf. Who knows?
No, I don't think that was specifically stated.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, depending upon what it is, because if orcs are origin from elves, well, then elves, you have the elf reproduction rate. Well, is the elf reproduction rate 9 months, or is it 16 years? Is it 30?
That was altered, right? Otherwise, Melkor couldn't make his armies.
The point being is that even if they do it, they're also doing it where orc women are exclusively used for breeding, nothing else.
Yep. Well, the orcs exclusively fodder. There's no value to them.
They have no value to Melkor, Morgoth, Sauron, whoever you want to like participate in that regard. They don't care. That's why they can breed faster. Where typically in Gondor, Rohan, the northern lands and stuff, they actually care about relationships. They actually get married. They actually have an actual family. They're not just there to pop out biological more. So obviously they're going to have a higher pop out rate for orcs than anything else, because they just don't care. They're not there for like, why are we talking about freaking femininity and female dwarves? Why aren't they bringing up the orcs and the horrible things? Oh, because he's the misunderstood villain. You can't obviously.
No, it's because the dwarven women don't look like women. So
I thought it was because
the orcs are black people, so you can't.
I'm gonna say because orcs are black, so obviously they can't be at fault.
Yeah.
The orcs are the ancestors of Romans.
Heresy is the problem, and fire is the solution, according to Warhammer. Heresy is
true.
Problem. Fire
is easy.
Heretic, kill the mutants,
basically.
burn the unclean.
Let's continue this. So
dwarves or dwarf women do not feature greatly in the Legendarium. The only female dwarf who is named is Dis, the daughter of Thrain, and the mother
The
of...
only dwarf that is shown is Gimli.
Power. Is the what?
Only Gimli shows up to a significant extent in
Well,
the
she's
Lord of
talking
the
about
Rings.
the written word, so to speak, right now.
She's talking
Yeah,
about
but even then.
she's not talking about in like just the Lord of the Rings. I don't think.
Yeah, but even in the Silmarillion, you don't see many dwarves.
There's only one female. She's right on that. There's only one female named dwarf, Lisa, and Tolkien comments in the letter. Well, female of the histories that I'm paraphrasing. Of the histories that I've written down, female dwarves didn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, because it's not necessary for the story to move.
Mm-hmm. And also, they're chilling at home.
They're partying. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Hobbit, but she is mentioned only in Appendix A of The Lord of the Rings and not within the narrative itself.
Because she's not
It is also
narrative.
discussed in Appendix
It's
A
obvious.
that, like the elves and the Númenórean kings, the numbers of dwarf women are low, quote,
Yep.
probably no more than a third of the whole people. The main problem with the scarcity of dwarf women, of course, is that children may also be scarce. Tolkien
Yeah.
refers directly to this
But
predicament in
dwarves live longer, so it cancels out.
Middle-earth 11 when he wrote...
Well, that was the thing. Is like mankind breeds really fast and really high, but they
But
don't
they
live.
also die instantly.
Well, not instantly, but
Well,
equivalent.
close to.
In comparison, yes.
Close enough.
But then you have dwarves.
To an
who-
elf, it's basically instant.
You get dwarves who live hundreds of years. What, like dwarves can go up to what, 800 years?
A lot. I think Durin
was like-
lives
A lot
like
compared to
a
man, that's not
1,000
very
or
much
so.
compared to elves. Elves are like multi-thousands.
Well,
so
and also to point out, there are a lot of elves. They're just all in the Undying Lands at the time of the Third Age.
Yeah, but I mean, those don't
they're
really
also,
count, do
they're
they?
also not procreating at the levels we see normally. We obviously have the exceptions where they're like, oh yeah, they popped out 7 kids. That's not
But they're not dying either. Meaning they're kids in the Undying Lands are just growing up and having more kids.
but they're not producing at the rate they produce, but because they're not
Well,
dying,
okay.
it will go up and grow, but it won't grow very
To
fast.
put this into perspective, there's a place that used to be called, I'm going to mess this pronunciation up, Angfalith, which is the size of New Jersey, which is the place where the armies is the host of Melkor and the host of the Valar assembled prior to the final battle of the First Age. It's the size of New Jersey, right? Both armies were so big they couldn't in space the size of New Jersey. So that means conservatively there were hundreds of millions of orcs and tens of millions in the army of the Valar.
What's okay? So you have the Teleri, the Noldor. I always forget the third one. What was the third one? The ones that are like
The Vanya.
The Vanguard and Noldor and
The
some of the
Vanguard-
Teleri are in the Undying
no
Lands.
population drop at all. The Vanguard had no population drop. It only went
Yeah,
up,
but I think the Vanya also started with fewest.
possibly. But they also had the longest time to just sit there.
And I think there were like only like 6 or so.
Obviously, the Noldor took care of the Teleri's population boom, and then the Noldor lost theirs through a whole bunch of wars.
Well,
because
no,
they-
that's not entirely true because the Teleri also were largely back in Middle Earth.
well, I'm talking about the Teleri in Valar,
Yeah, but
in the Valinor.
those are not the only Teleri.
Yes, but they're the Teleri that took a heavy hit in population growth. The
Fair,
Noldor did.
sure.
The
Also, I
Noldor-
just looked it up. Durin the First may have lived as long as 2,500 years, apparently.
dwarves.
I think the
No, Durin.
average dwarf lives a lot shorter.
Yeah, the average dwarf is
500 years?
250.
Oh,
Yeah.
even shorter, yeah. Okay.
I
But
think
Durin the
dwarf
First
indicated
is
the
like
dwarf
the
father
insanely
is
long-lived
one
one.
lived longer than the others.
No, it follows.
Other than maybe Gimli. Gimli might have a stretched out lifespan because he went to the Undying Lands. That's about it.
Well, I mean, I don't think that does anything for your lifespan, though.
Well, does he die? Because it's the Undying Lands. Can you die in the Undying Lands?
Yes.
Yeah, he still dies. He's immortal.
It's called the Undying Lands because that's where the elves live, and they don't die.
It's the closest thing to how the Earth was before Melkor tainted it.
I'm just saying. I call that false advertising. You know?
Yeah, it is. It is. That's what.
I want the
Númenóreans found out.
refund.
I would have refunded. Give me my money back. My
And-
vacation is ruined.
And the reason Gimli might have lived longer is if exposure to that elven
No,
lore
but see,
and
Gimli
life
is of
extended
Durin's
human
line.
lifespans, it would logically extend the dwarf lifespan.
Guys.
Gimli could have lived longer because he's part of Durin's line.
Yeah.
So there's a natural. It's like how the Númenóreans and their descendants live longer.
Yeah. Well, they
So
were
too,
part
it makes
of the
sense for
elves, most of the
Gimli
elven
to
line
live longer
was
because
normal.
he's a descendant of Durin the Deathless, who lived apparently 2,500 years, which is insane.
I think the woke police have swatted. They're firing their turf blast at him right now.
Well, cockroaches don't stay down, right?
I don't really hate Kate because that's wrong, but I despise like this insipid. I don't know. You can't, because she actually references things from the book, so she know at some point the words went across our eyes and programmed into our brain. You know what I mean? Right? Like she said, at some point looked at the material, but to have so totally, I mean, Sage, what are you going to, a master's in physics or whatever you are right now?
Particle astrophysics.
Yeah. So, and I did some engineering studies. You're taught a certain mentality when you approach things, right? But one of the things we're taught is you don't submerge what you're analyzing to your own ideology.
Yeah.
Because you have to be objective even with yourself.
But they don't do that in the social sciences.
Yeah. Well, you can have your opinion, but you have to separate it from the logical analysis. Like she could do this stuff and have a separate, in my opinion, this is how it is, right? But what she
but I don't think the social sciences do it that way.
Well, most of them are bunk.
Yeah, no, that's because they don't do it this way.
Yeah.
Because they're literally Hitler.
But like what she's doing here is reinterpreting.
They don't have proper research methodologies.
Yes, she's reinterpreting what Tolkien wrote in the context of her ideology, and that's not going to get any.
That's like the core thing to do in a critical theory.
It's using her ideology as a lens to look through, rather than looking at the actual context it would have actually been done.
The idea is to look at something, problematize it, and then let other people know, oh, it's bad.
Like
we
if
must change.
A scientific approach might be, what is this?
Idea.
A critical theory approach is, what is wrong with this?
But specifically from a certain viewpoint.
Yeah. From a certain viewpoint.
And it's not finding out what is wrong with it necessarily, but finding specific things you can say are wrong with it.
Yeah.
Right. It is said also that their women conduct too, and that, save their kings and chieftains, few dwarves ever wed. Wherefore their race multiplied slowly and now is dwindling. Yeah. It is notable, therefore, that Tolkien himself acknowledged the scarcity of dwarf women and the potential consequences of this.
So?
The narrative does not indicate that dwarves attached any great importance to the perpetuation of their race. In fact, Tolkien reveals the opposite to be true. Not only does
especially protective
marry, there appears to be no sense of urgency regarding the situation among male dwarves. Again, in Appendix A, Tolkien tells us that Thorin had no wife, thus illustrating the point that even the most important dwarves rarely marry. In The Lord of the Rings,
just because one important dwarf doesn't marry doesn't mean every single important dwarf doesn't marry. How do you think they have blood?
No. She's being literal about what Tolkien wrote, and she's about to twist that for her foul purposes. So she's Tolkien literally.
But also,
that the dwarves
it's the exact opposite.
Their work for them reproducing.
Because we know the dwarves were especially protective of them because there were so few and because they valued their legacy.
Like maybe Dwarven leaders said we have a problem here, but the majority of dwarves are driven by the Dwarven need to do things other than reproduce,
itself, we encounter Gimli, the son of Gloin, who is one of the party of dwarves in The Hobbit. But there's never any reference to Gimli's mother, nor does Tolkien mention any siblings. There's no evidence within the narrative, the appendix, nor even the history of Middle-earth.
This is an argument of silence. It's like, well, because they didn't say he had any siblings, that means he doesn't have any siblings. It's like, or his siblings are somewhere. Possible.
Yeah, who knows?
Theories that Gimli himself either marries or has children, possibly as a result of his great love for Galadriel and his reverence for her beauty.
That has literally nothing to do with it.
Yeah, no, that
she's going to use it to twist something. Just bear with it.
She's just spouting crap already.
But also possibly due to the dwarves' apparent lack of interest in procreation.
There's no lack of interest. There's just a big barrier in the way.
I mean, you can procreate even as a human, attempt procreation every single day of your life. You're only going to get one kid per 9 months, unless you have twins, triplets, quintuplets, or whatever. Like,
well, it have to be more than 9 months. More like 11.
well, whatever would be a percentage equivalent
Yeah.
for somebody of a longer living race.
Well, I
or
just
whatever.
want to I work in women's health. A woman cannot actually get pregnant like right after she gives birth.
Well, yes. Essentially one per year, with the possible chance of a second being conceived in the same year. Possible. But even with that, you're still limited. But if you live 200 years, well, who knows when they're even viable for procreation? Because for like humans, it'd be puberty and stuff like that. But do dwarves have puberty? We don't go into that because it's not necessary for the story.
One can assume the answer is yes.
But why would you say that? They're not human.
Not? But they are almost like humans.
They're almost not. They came from freaking stone and clay, dude. What are you talking about?
Yeah, fair enough. But they were made
I say
the same image, just smashed into short
like
stature.
saying elves are basically humans, except for all the things that they're not the same. Like even
They're basically the same, just a bit better.
Well, which one's better? Because which one has the gift and which one does not have the gift?
Well, no, that's a separate issue.
Oh, how convenient.
Yes.
You start to sound like the Sarah lady.
Are conspicuously absent from the legendarium. According to the Quenta Silmarillion, Aule made only the
Yes, the Quentins.
and nowhere in the legendarium is there any record of the making of female dwarves.
Because it's not necessary.
Yeah, because he begun with 7 men dwarves.
He had no plans for them to live like regular lives. They were going to be like his work buddy.
And otherwise, if he had made female dwarves, it would be still misogynistic because he struck them down at some point after making them.
Well, he put them to sleep.
No, he smashed them. That's why they're short. No, that's literally what it says in the Silmarillion. They became short because he tried to smash them with his hammer.
I thought he was about to smash them, but Eru stopped him.
Yeah, Eru
No, he did it a few times, and they recoiled.
He was going to destroy them if you stopped him. And then the whole line about because
Eru stopped him from destroying them,
Yeah.
but not from first hitting them a few times.
But even
I don't know why.
How does that affect their DNA structure, which is how biology and procreation?
Well, no, this is magic, right?
no, it's not magic. It's divine providence.
I don't know how creation works. Okay.
Like divine providence, you'll be short.
Well,
Just because he hit you with a hammer, knock you down a few pegs, pun intended.
So if you go with like the Catholic interpretation, which Tolkien would have, the dwarves became more human. They gained DNA, all that. When Eru gave them the breath of life, which is the same breath of life that he grants to men, to elves, and to Ents.
But Ents aren't human. They don't have human DNA.
Human means you have a soul.
You
And
So
Tolkien word
dwarves were
translation
basically
is soul.
human.
So Ents have souls?
Yes. Yavanna went to pled on their behalf, and Eru granted them the breath of life as well.
We'll get back to that.
Of Durin the Deathless, the eldest of these fathers of dwarves, Tolkien observes that, quote, his line never failed, so he must have had children, but there's no mention of the dwarf women who must have been their mothers.
No, I think they are mentioned.
However, that Tolkien had considered
Because
this
we know
seemingly at some level.
Can you imagine? This is what I was going to bring
Well, there are
up.
family trees, but I don't remember if they mentioned the dwarf women in the
No, I think it's mentioned specifically that
Typical.
all the male dwarves of the 7, except for Durin, awoke with a female dwarf next to them.
So it's kind of the Adam and Eve story alongside a whole bunch of.
Yeah, but in this case, there's 6 of them.
So in this regard, can you imagine? She wants every detail. She wants
Mhm.
every woman that ever existed that ever was equal to any male that existed inside of any story. Can you imagine how long the Wheel of Time series would be if Robert Jordan added every single detail? Considering how detailed he is now, that series wouldn't be 15 books. It'd be thousands of books. Because she wants every detail. Well, you told us about Logain. Why not Logain's girlfriend? Well, one, he doesn't have one, I know. But two, it doesn't matter if she doesn't play a role. Like Robert Jordan brings up, I can't remember which one. Which one? What are the parents, Ashaman, that he uses to get his wife back?
Well,
I'm trying to remember too. Is it it starts with a G. Gray. The Ashaman. There's two Ashaman that are with Perrin that use the waygates, or not the waygates, the gateways to travel around and round. Grady. So Grady and I'm trying to remember the other guy's name. Is it Neald? Or is it Neald Grady is his name? I don't remember. But Grady, I think, was talking about like how his wife's knee was hurting. Because that was only relevant because the wives that went to the Black Tower with their husbands, because they didn't want to leave them or whatever, they had like a bond situation where they could feel them. But that was part of the narrative to help explain certain things, because it was necessary for the story to explain that in Robert Jordan's eyes. So when he mentions like, you know, I think her name's like Rennie or something like that. It's just like, oh, her knee's aching right now because she hurt it or something. And he's like, how do you know that? It's like, oh, they have a bond between them. Like, if that was not the case, if there was no like necessary need for a bond between a husband and wife for the Ashaman families, they would probably not even mention them because they're not necessary for the story to move along. But when they mention them. That's why they're mentioned, because there's a necessary use for them to explain a mechanic in the world of Wheel of Time. So
okay, so I looked up why the dwarves are small. It's a bit less, let's say, specific than I thought, but it says something like this. Then Aule took up a great hammer to smite the dwarves, and he wept. But Iluvatar had compassion upon Aule and his desire because of his humility, and the dwarves shrank from the hammer. Right, so they get small.
That's not what shrank means.
Shrank.
Yeah, that's
past tense of shrink.
No, you're using the wrong case of shrank
You're
here.
saying
Like
they shrunk, not that they shrunk away.
yeah,
They recoiled away. That's the word. They recoiled, shrank, not
okay.
shrunk as it became miniatures.
Fair,
like,
fair.
What are you?
I'm
smoking?
not an English linguist. I figured it would be shrinking, right?
Well, shrink typically means to like shrink,
Yeah.
but it also means to shy away.
Okay, fair enough.
It says the blow fell. It just says they shied away is essentially the context for that. It's the Old English thing. You'd know this if you ever paid attention to Old English. You freaking
yeah, but I'm not an English person, so why would I learn Old English?
Because you speak English. What kind of heathen are you?
Aren't you Scandinavian?
No.
Do I have your country wrong or something? Say it. I thought you were from like Norway or something like that.
Netherlands.
What do you call a Netherlandian?
Not that.
The people in the Netherlands, they're Germanic.
Yeah.
But we don't call them Germans.
Old English is a Germanic language. It's like the ancestral.
Yeah, but I don't speak every Germanic language.
No, I'm just saying why you might be interested. I'm not saying you should be.
No, I'm asking, what do you call someone from the Netherlands? If you call Germans from Germany, they're called Germans.
Yeah.
Call Americans from America, Americans. What do you call Netherlandians?
And Dutchman.
Dutchman.
Okay.
But we call ourselves Nederlanders.
Which is basically Netherlandians.
Yes. I don't know where Dutch comes from. Except maybe from Deutsch.
Deutsch?
Which is what the Germans call themselves.
Deutschian? Deutsch.
So
Deutschlanders.
it's really awkward because
Well, Netherlands are pretty
Dutch
awkward.
is basically very similar to Deutsch, which is what German call themselves. But Dutch means
okay.
Nederlander.
So I looked this
And
up.
we have the Netherlands, which is not
I just looked this up,
Dutchland,
Sage.
let's say, right? So it makes no sense.
Dutch is derived from an earlier common language spoken in the Low Countries called Dietz. The word Dutch comes from a Proto-Germanic word meaning of the people. It shares a root with the German word Deutsch.
Mm-hmm. Deutsch means the people. That's why Deutschland.
What do you call people from the Netherlands? Douches. I always knew there's something wrong with you, Sage.
Because Holland literally means woodland in Old English, and originally referred to the people from the northern region of the Netherlands.
It still does.
The wood clogs. The wood clogs is where you get your name, the woodlands. All right, now that we've had our break of linguistic advertisement of somebody else's language software.
I have 15 minutes left, so let's.
We're not 15 minutes away from being finished. So I'm trying to hurry.
Making of the first dwarves. According to Christopher Tolkien, his father had written a number of roughly drafted passages on this topic. It is in these notes, found in the later Quenta Silmarillion, in the section of the Naugrim and the Edain, that the only mention of the making of female dwarves may be found. Here we can also track Tolkien's development of thought on the issue. Note A, as you can see on the slide, indicates that Aule made no dwarf women, but that Ilúvatar created them as mates for the males that Aule had made.
Yeah, could be.
Copy and paste, you nincompoop. Like, you literally just say, oh, this is how, dwarves are made according to Aule, because obviously anything Aule can do, Eru can do, and better. So in that case, he's like, here's how the dwarves are made. Now, what if I take them and I just make them female instead of male? To compare them to, complement each other, just like, the Adam and Eve scenario.
And that's why they look the same.
It's copy and paste. It doesn't, why is there only adding a mate? It's like, well, because he only made things in male form. Ali was not like, ooh, men or women. He was just saying, I want to teach somebody something. So he makes something, and that's what they got. I mean, he only made 7 of them, for crying out loud.
This is the only one of the notes that explains the existence of the dwarf women in this way. All of the others show Aule himself as creator of the females, although Tolkien offers a number of possible explanations for both their creation and their number. Both Note B and Note C show Aule creating only 6 females to the 7 males, with the reason
Durin doesn't have
before he could make 7. It is interesting also to see
why he lived so long.
Note C that Durin was laid alone.
You know what her droning voice reminds me of?
What?
Do you guys remember the movie Equilibrium? The droning voice describing Libria. We have the perfect society. We have that same droning, insipid, evil voice, man.
I have never seen this movie.
Oh, you need to see it, man.
It has Sean Bean in it, and guess what? He dies.
What a
spoiler!
I mean, it's a fantastic movie.
It's the world.
What's his death percentage in movies? Actually,
it's pretty
100%.
It's not 100%.
No, it's not 100. No, it's
true.
It's high.
It's 99% death rate, but he's also done a lot of stuff.
He survives as Zeus in Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief movie.
Okay.
He's in a
Do we count that movie as? Well, the first one wasn't that bad, actually. It's mostly
it was pretty horrendous, but yeah.
British TV show about Britain in the 1700s or something like that. Or it was 1800s, I think. I can't remember what it's called. He was in a TV series that he was a soldier.
We just talked about Sharp.
Sharp, yes, Sharp. And I don't know if he dies in that or not, but
no, he doesn't die because he's still alive in the novels.
There you go. So not 100% style.
Great movie, a semi-true story about the longest special forces. He was trapped behind enemy lines and was the longest single flight to survive of a special forces soldier, and he played that guy. I don't remember his name, but it's a great movie.
Sharp.
Also,
Bravo 20. He played
Is
Andy
the
McNabb. Was
audio
the British
quality of
SS
this
guy.
video kind of shit.
It's terrible.
What happened?
No, I'm just wondering whether it's just me and my headphones or something, or that the audio quality of this video is
That's
just that bad.
well, no, it's really low, despite it being all the way up. That's why I put the subtitles on, just in case people could misread everything.
Actually noteworthy, as it is Durin who is singled out for the comment that his line never failed, and not the other dwarves, for whom Aule seemingly did create these.
To be fair, if his line never failed, how did he get more of them? Well, if he didn't have a mate, how did
Well,
he get
no,
more?
he got one surely somewhere in those 2,500 years. Maybe he waited for the other dwarves to populate a bit more, and then just came by and said, "Hey, I need a wife."
I need a great grand niece.
These unnamed female mates. In contrast,
She's so salty about unnamed mates. It's like, yes, because unless they do something or have a reason to be mentioned, they don't do this. This is not exclusive to Tolkien's writing. Like ancient writing and ancient texts do this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's cover the Assyrians, the Hittites, the Egyptians. They don't mention them unless there's a specific reason to do so. So
Lilith.
Lilith is questionable at best. You should know this is a theologian, dude. What's wrong with you?
I know. It's just fun.
It's annoyingly fun for you. Annoying for me. Fun for
note
you.
D has Aule creating an equal number of both, apparently in obedience to the desire of Ilúvatar. By note E, however, Tolkien had reverted to his original idea of only 6 dwarf women to the 7 dwarf fathers, with the eldest, Durin, being buried alone. Why Tolkien decides this is not apparent from the text, but his decision again begs the question of the continuation of Durin's line.
Which I agree with. That does beg the question. But again, there's other reasonable
I
explanations.
mean, he lives 2,500 years. It's not that difficult to.
And obviously,
imagine.
his wife will not live that long. So
Yeah.
basically, he's going to get her for 200 years at most, probably.
Well, maybe the dwarves lived longer in the olden days.
Potentially.
Don't know.
We don't know.
Similar to the
It's not the end of
Numenorians.
Tolkien's
Again,
musing
it's an
on
argument
this,
from
Hugo.
silence.
He continued this discussion in his letter 211 to Rona Beer in 1958, in
Now
which
she
he
mentions
reiterates the
letters.
idea of there being 7 dwarfs and 6 dwarf women, or mates, writing that Aule
Dwarf women or mates. Still salty.
quote, had made 13, and in a note at the bottom of the page confirming, quote, 1, the eldest alone, and 6 more with 6 mates. There's some important points to be made here. First, Tolkien's thoughts on the subject tended to an inequality in the numbers of dwarf women from the very beginning, thus
Oh, no.
presaging the
Not
difficulties
inequality.
in enabling the continuation of their species. Second, the dwarf women are specifically created as mates for the dwarf fathers, with all the implications that come with such a term.
No, that's just a regular term in old. Well, not old English, but
That's just like saying your partner.
yeah,
Like any.
that's a normal word to
her
be used
idea of
in that time.
implications that come with such a term equals to sexual only. I'm like, but people don't just get married to have sex. That's a part of it. That's the intimacy aspect of it. But you still have to take care of your crops. You still have to take care of your minds in this case. You still have to take care of the kids. You still got
Yeah,
like whether
Do
it's
they have crops on the ground? Is that a thing?
well,
No.
there's a theory that they had like areas of the mountain where the light came in, and then they would like plant sections of it. But sometimes they actually planted outside of the mountains, depending upon where they are. But that's again theory. Whether they had to eat something, and they could just trade for it indefinitely because they just have a lot of. That's
Dwarves do not all live underground, and especially if they're kicked out of Moria, they settle on the surface up in.
they would still.
No, but their primary residences are underground, though.
No, but they had like farmers and stuff like that.
They have vacation homes in the plains where the farms are. So
Could be, yeah.
Finally, and most significantly, Despite all these draft passages and continued discussion in his letters, Tolkien discarded every one of these explanations for the existence of dwarf women and chose instead to excise them from the moment of creation. In his commentary on the later Quintus Silmarillion, Christopher Tolkien notes, quote, "In the final text, as printed in the Silmarillion, my father evidently abandoned the question of the origin of the female dwarves, finding it intractable and the solutions unsatisfactory. Moreover, in the finished form, the element of the eldest, Durin, being distinct from the others and without mate, finds no place." Perhaps this issue, like the matter of the origin of the orcs, proved troublesome enough for Tolkien that he never fully resolved it for himself. However, as a result, even in their moment of origin, dwarf women are obscured.
You stupid bitch! Oh.
So her entire argument literally holds off of he didn't mention him, therefore misogyny, or therefore, you know.
She's making the toilet bowl argument. That if you didn't write that they went to the bathroom, they never invented toilet bowls.
Yes, that's the argument.
That's the argument she's making right now.
Yeah, the argument.
Tolkien didn't finish writing because he had a pesky little thing dying.
Yeah, he died.
Writing he died to spite those damn feminists, so they couldn't have an answer to their damn feminist question. Well, he got them in the end with misogyny.
He prioritized good storytelling, a solid historical documentation through the Silmarillion, which again wasn't even compiled in his lifetime because he died before he could finish it.
Correct.
But
that was a spam call.
How do you know that?
Because it said spam.
It says on there.
Can you mention your last name being Spam? You call somebody.
My name is Robert Spam.
You taste terrible. But yeah, like the argument from silence is basically, if you do not add it in, if you do not talk about it, it didn't happen, and it's because X, Y, and Z. Like you're saying, well,
yeah, but on the other hand, you can also specifically not write something in if you don't want it to happen.
Well, okay, so the argument of silence can be inverted to where basically saying, well, he didn't say it, so then we can infer it. And it's like, well, yes, but no, depending on the topic. You can't infer that because Tolkien never said that dwarves didn't tame dragons, that there are dragon tamer dwarves.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly reasonable. I'm going to believe that now.
That'd be freaking cool, except all the dragons were evil as far as we were aware, so that would be problematic.
No.
As the
evil is not a thing anymore because that's problematic itself.
Unless it's white people, then it's evil. But
histories of the dwarves, it is clear that there is not only a lack of emphasis on reproduction, but also that dwarf women are seemingly invisible, their existence almost completely ignored. They appear to be of so little significance within dwarf.
This lady wants to be a dwarf so freaking hard.
Culture, that they're removed from these dwarf histories.
I don't think she wants to.
Appendix A on the absence.
Well, she's so obsessed with the fact that they're not mentioned. Like, we're 12 minutes in, and she's only really talked about the dwarves.
Yeah, but
absent.
She's wrong.
Well, yes, that's the obvious answer.
It's a record concerning female dwarves. Tolkien himself tells us that, quote,
okay, maybe she doesn't like that the dwarves look like men. All of them.
I thought the current day thing was we want all women to be like men.
Yeah.
They're okay with trans women.
Maybe this is a heretic within the religion.
Heresy is the problem. Fire is the solution.
in genealogies.
Look, it says right there. Male and female alike had beards from the beginning of their lives. I didn't see that in the Rings of Power.
Nor indeed can their womankind be discerned by those of the other race, be it that in the feature or in the gait or in the voice, nor in any wise save this, that they go not to war, and seldom save at direst need issue from their deep bowers and halls. Well, that's why you don't see them unless you're a dwarf. This is not a complicated concept. But it's like, I guess from their perspective, it's like they're either non-existent because they're never seen by anybody else, or they're treated like chattel and slaves, where they're basically just breeding pods. Is what they're perceived.
Well, this insipid bitch is looking for problems where they don't exist.
Mm-hmm. And that's critical theory.
She would say you should read between the lines, and it's just like you read between something, but it wasn't the lines that he wrote.
Join their husbands' families. But if a son is seen to be 110 or so years younger than his father, this usually indicates an elder daughter. Thorin's sister Dis is named simply because of the gallant death of her sons Fili and Kili in defense of Thorin II.
The second book.
The gap indicates an elder daughter.
The literal second, 60 seconds, in the literal second.
Yeah, guys, I gotta
invisibility.
You what?
I gotta take a half an hour break for my live stream.
That's all good. That's all good. Thanks for
And
sticking around.
Gotta go to.
That pesky little thing called sleep there, it's like.
I know, but I gotta wake up in like 3.5 hours, so
3.5.
Yeah.
You need to move to America so you can be on our quality time and not that strange European time.
Yeah.
I mean, this is perfect European time.
And also be better, because we're better than Europe, so.
Well, for now.
Anyway, guys.
True. For now, we're holding on. But thank you, Matt. Have a good one.
Yeah, man.
And to you guys and to this insipid bitch.
Well, you wanted to grow a beard?
Oh, this is my gesture.
This isn't even my final form.
Okay.
So yeah, have a good one, Matt. And have a good one, Arturian. Thank you for showing up for once. It's nice to see you every once in a
Thank you,
while.
guys.
I was surprised that you changed to a Warhammer image, but yeah.
I didn't have my standard profile picture. Easy to find, so I went with this one.
Yeah.
Your picture folder. That's where it is.
I also had
I have 1,000 folders. I can't keep track.
It didn't seem to remember mine either, but
Well, that's because you're always showing your face, Sage, so we don't need it. Doesn't matter.
true. But I also had to put in my name again, which it normally doesn't do.
No.
Different IP address or something?
I don't think so.
Tells you what
They
you know.
don't change regularly, right? I don't know.
But I'm
I'm not
trying
a computer scientist.
Yeah.
I know the feeling because 2 nights ago I had like 2 hours of sleep and I had to work for 8 hours and it was fun.
Oof.
Goodbye.
All right.
So, half a video to go still.
Well, I mean, with only 2 of us, it should go a little bit faster.
Well,
The thing I noticed about live streams and things of that typical ilk is that the more people you have in the conversation, like say for EFAP, if they have like 10 people in EFAP, it goes 10 times the amount of time as if there's only like a couple. Because
I think that's also largely due to the fact that it's much easier to get sidetracked with many people.
Well, not even sidetracked. None was sidetracked. Just having more people with more opinions as more people talking more often, which equals
Yeah,
more.
but if people talk more often with different opinions, there's more chances to go sidetracked.
I am not opposed to being sidetracked because that's how I usually start in a conversation. I cover everything and then come back
And
to
then,
it.
like 2 hours later, we end up at the back point where we finally get a solution. Yes.
2 hours? What are you, an amateur? It's like 8.
Wow. That way you can discuss 2 things in a video, right?
Well, let's see if we can hammer
Thus,
this out.
apart from the few comments to be found within the appendix to The Lord of the Rings and in the later Quenta Silmarillion, Tolkien omits no further explanation of this and never encountered in any of the narratives. So dwarf women then are present only in relation to the male dwarves, a point that is emphasized by the way in which they...
I feel like this entire thing could be just jumbled up into one. It's, who cares? You have to tell me
also, I mean,
presence in the story.
We only see ever 13, I think, maybe 14 dwarves. Right? In The Hobbit, you have how many are there?
Well, you get 13 plus because obviously you see Durin.
Yeah, but you don't see Durin.
Well, no, like he shows up at the Battle of the 5 Armies.
No, that's not Durin.
Or not Iron
Dane.
Dane,
Yes.
Dane, sorry.
Okay, so that's 14 named dwarves in The Hobbit.
Well, that means that there's only 14 dwarves. Like the Dwarven army was
plus
they weren't named. They weren't pointed out.
There are 15 dwarves that we see. Well, no, there's also the petty dwarves in the Silmarillion. So there's 18 dwarves total
That's because Tolkien couldn't
that
wrap
we
his
meet.
mind around having 2,000 plus named characters in his story.
No, he can definitely do that.
He can't. He literally can't. Because he's dead.
Well, no, he did.
He did 2,000 named characters?
Probably. I don't know. I haven't
Ah.
counted them, but I'm assuming there's a
The
shit
world
ton.
record for having so many freaking named characters.
How many does he have?
2,235 or something like that.
See, and even Tolkien can do 2,000 then, right? Surely.
I'm not saying he can't, like he's not physically capable, he just didn't.
Do you know that for certain?
I'm pretty positive he did not go 2,000 because there's not 2,000 named that I know of. If I'm checking now, and
Okay, fair. It's only apparently from a random Google search, roughly 750.
yeah, that's not 2,000. I know you Europeans struggle with math, but
But I wonder if this is an accurate number because it's a random Google search.
let me do. If you have to search the proper
I
thing.
mean, you have all the fucking million elves.
All right,
in
so
the
Lord of the
Silmarillion.
Rings. Oops, hold on. Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien consists of approximately 455,000 words, which translates to over 1.2 million characters. That doesn't help. The closest estimation is 750 named characters, but some pages are up to 819. That's nowhere near that much. So I would say it makes more sense. And this is just them having a name. This doesn't even include them like being a person.
Yeah, no, sure. But that's because we focus on very few select
But there's
characters.
also some times where like things like reappears in it over and over again. So it might actually be smaller depending on if you're counting individual character names like a single time use. Some are not. Some are used like some people count all names that are used, whether they be the same one. So like Helm Hammerhand gets a rank boost as he's counted every time Helm's Deep is mentioned. So basically Helm's Deep is
That's a stupid way to count, though.
well, not if you're counting. There's two ways to count. There's counting individual, specific, unique characters, and then there's how many names were put in it.
Yeah, but why would you do the second one?
Because somebody wants to know the information. It's called data.
But it's useless data.
You know what else is useless data? Finding out there's 455,000 freaking words in freaking Lord of the Rings. There's no point to it. It's just data.
I don't know. There's maybe a slight point to it because that means you have to read that many words to finish it. So it's do I want to start or not?
How many books or how many words do I have to read? You do know how many pages maybe, but you wouldn't go off of words.
Some maybe would. I don't know.
Barbarian. Anyway, let's get
They are
I
shaded.
generally count it in books. Fair enough.
Tolkien describes
I
it
count an interest personally. If I'm interested, I'm reading it. That's it.
in the later Quenta Silmarillion that female dwarves are
Ironically, that's why Warhammer is kind of moving up on my want to know and understand thing. But I kind of want to know it from an easier perspective rather than going through 6,000 books to read every.
Yeah, no, I probably will never start with Warhammer because it's there's so many different ways to start, right?
I've heard a lot of ways, like on Archcast and whatnot. They've mentioned like if somebody's getting into it, how would you start and then do it? Or not, it wasn't Archcast. It was probably EFAP or FNT or something, where they mentioned like, you know, if I was to start, here's books, or if you're going to start, here's some books to read about, like Dante and whatnot.
Yeah, but is it only the books, or do you also need to do the lore from the rule books? Is that counted?
Well, the lore from the rule books only is if you're playing the game.
Yeah, but it's also lore from Warhammer, so
You kind of need to know the rules of the game in order to play the game.
mhm.
So
the lore is maybe not as necessary. I don't know.
are indiscernible from the males, except in the fact that they rarely leave their homes to go out into the world, as
No,
quote,
no,
"Go not
they
to war,
rarely
seldom
go
say that direst
outside
need
for
is
war.
from their deep bowers."
Well, no, it literally said, where is it? Maybe I think she changed the page. Or no, that they go not to war and seldom save at direst need issue from their towers and halls.
And halls.
How dare you?
They don't need to.
In her work,
there's no necessary need to. That's the good part.
Desire in language, Julia Kristeva
Female
positions
identity.
the figure of woman as, quote, the silence or incoherence of the pre-discursive. She
What
is
does
the
that have to
other
do with
which
talking?
stands outside and threatens to disrupt the conscious, rational order of speech.
Well,
which-
it's what Matt said. They're reading into things on purpose. This isn't because it's necessary or whatever. It's because they take a little piece from this, 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 jumble it together like a broken puzzle, and then they say, "Oh, look, it all makes sense now." That's what a lot of people do.
Also, this is from a random person, this J. Kristeva. Why should we take her word for this is how it's actually
What
supposed to
happened
be?
is, I don't think J. Kristeva wrote anything specifically about Tolkien.
No, this is likely a language, right?
This is how women
This is
are.
linguistic. Is this how women see themselves? Is that it?
But that's the thing, is that we don't know the context. They're not using it in context. They're using a one-off line to enunciate or pronounce their particular message they're trying to get across. It has nothing to do with whether or not Tolkien has to do this. This is literally
sure.
Whatever.
This is an entirely separate thing that she connects to. I know.
Yes, but if we went to
but why would you connect it?
132 by J. Kristeva, I can almost guarantee that we read the whole context. It's not the same context as it's being applied to, which is
That's
what makes
probably fair. Yeah.
And so now we have S. Beauvoir, the second sex.
This is the trans issue,
S.D. Beauvoir,
because they keep destroying women's rights, right?
I guess, or feminism in the spaces of transformation. That's obviously not a Tolkien thing.
Sorry,
But this is evident. That's the gender identities are produced in the performative. And then obviously one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. But
that's nonsense. No, actually, it's correct, because if you're not an adult, but still female, you're a girl, not a woman.
But that doesn't replace the one is not born. You still have to be born.
Yeah, but you're not born a woman, you're born a girl. And then when you grow up, you become. I can see that being
I'd say it'd be inaccurate.
But I think what she means here is the whole behavior type stuff that gets associated with it in culture.
Yeah, I just think it's funny they call them the second sex, and they're not complaining about that because that implies that they're inferior to the first sex. But whatever.
No, I think
I'm saying it's
because this is Simone de Beauvoir, right?
Yes.
This is specifically, I think, a book criticizing the fact that women are seen as not
equal,
the first sex, right? Not equal. So the title is supposed to immediately make a controversial statement, let's say.
Well, I guess
situation of Tolkien's dwarf women. Although they are never, we are told, forced into marriage, nevertheless, they live a life of seclusion, rarely entering the world.
There's no benefit to not being married for a dwarf woman.
Yeah.
And if they hold any sense of duty to their people,
but
typically homogenous groups would.
They're not forced. They can choose which one because there are few, right? And they have all the selection they can do because there are less women.
I've always had the selection, except for in the cases of a situation where arranged marriages were required, or necessity.
And maybe the Middle East.
In that place, yes. that blip on the world.
And they're never unaccompanied. We may also note that they're very feminine.
Because otherwise the elves will steal them.
Their femininity is disguised. I'm because they're worried about something that might happen or might not happen. There's no evidence of this, but it's their femininity. I'm oh, are you implying that all women have to be feminine? Because that's exactly the opposite of virtually every other current take of the feminist agenda. Feminists don't believe in femininity because they don't understand the concept of femininity.
even removed, as seen in the suggestion in Appendix A, that they are so similar in appearance to the male dwarves that, quote, the eyes and ears of other people cannot tell them apart. According
because to the eyes and ears of other people are strange.
Yeah, I mean, all Asians look the same, right?
Well, I mean,
basically,
elves don't have beards on their men except for like very, very few, very
no,
rare.
only the super old ones.
That's the very few and very rare. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, but it's not rare that they get beards. It's not like
there's not
okay,
many...
no, but see, it's not rare because it's only some elves get beards.
I'm not saying it's rare.
All of them do.
It's rare
if
that you
only they reach a certain age,
which not many do. Thus, rare.
Yeah, but
I think Círdan is one of the ones that they mentioned that does have a beard because he's
Círdan has he's the oldest elf in Middle Earth.
Yeah, but my point is that it'd be weird to walk around and assume elvish society, like they just randomly grow beards at the middle age of their lifespan or something, which is what you'd expect from like humans or something. Humans are like, oh, we're hitting 16, 17, 18, and now all of a sudden a lot of guys are just popping out beards if they don't shave.
Yeah, basically magic, right?
Yes, I'd call it more of a chia pet, but yes. But the elves, it'd be more like magic for an elf because you don't see them on a regular basis with beards. It's abnormal. Do you think that there are people in like dwarves? Maybe there are dwarves that have never seen an elf with a beard because there's so few of them, and the dwarves don't get out much. There's odds that they'd never even seen a beard on a dwarf, and that's
that's impossible. All dwarves have beards.
No, an elf without a beard.
But you said dwarf.
Oh, that too. Sure, why not? I meant elf with beard, but yes.
Okay, yeah, fair.
If they never see one, do they just assume they don't? And because also think what's the culture for dwarves? If you don't have a beard, you're what?
You're not a dwarf.
Well, I mean, you're shamed. Like you feel shame because you don't have a beard. Like it's your pride.
Dwarfed, essentially.
Yes. It's basically you've been castrated essentially. You castrated in a nationalistic sense, but there's a context to each culture. These are things that are not necessary for any of these cultures to exist. We don't have to know about the women in human cultures like Gondor, Arnor, Dol Amroth, or no, is Dol Amroth Elvish?
I think that's a random forest somewhere, isn't it?
No, I thought the Knights of Dol Amroth are they human, or I thought it was a sub piece of Gondor. Is it one of the Numenorean?
Part of the Kingdom of Gondor in the southern reaches of that realm.
Okay, so it is human. So it'd be like Dol Amroth, and all that jazz. Like, we don't need to know that they have women there to know that they have women there, because we know they have women there because they have more kids.
And okay, I was thinking of Nan Elmoth, which is almost the same. That's a forest.
Well, they also have one that's Elvish, that's similar to Dol Amroth up in the north.
I mean, it's basically all Elvish language, right? For the names.
Basically all elves.
Yeah. No, but all of Gondor uses Elvish names.
Well, because it's Numenorean heritage, and Numenorians were created basically from elves.
So it's really difficult to tell apart just from the name whether it's human or elf.
Well, no, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, and it's been way too many years. Oh, by the way, we need to get together and play some like Battle for Middle Earth or something. I really want to play that. Do like a War of the Ring game mode. That's a lot of time. So let's just burn through this. But basically, the rough point of this is basically she's saying because it's not mentioned, therefore misogyny.
Yeah.
Or something akin to that. It's like
also let's look at these very specific other things. Definitely, this is what Tolkien meant.
I mean, what point would it be to add this? That's the thing is I wish they had like a Q&A type of situation with this, because it's like, okay, you say X, why? Pun intended. Like,
I very much doubt they would have this.
why would there be a need to have women in this story? Like,
Actually, I found a link with the schedule.
oh, I know the schedule. Yeah, I know that one. It's a long schedule. But like, there's no logical reason to add a woman into the picture if there's things based to do with war that she's not participating in. If there's something about two nations talking, and it's two kings communicating with each other, why does there need to be a queen in the picture having the conversation as well? Like, if they're not participating, then what's the point in mentioning them?
Mhm.
There's no real reason to do so.
Schedule's half an hour per thing. This video is 27 minutes 13 seconds.
Oh yeah, I know.
No question time.
I'm away. Well, I know they're not going to. They would never
Mhm.
have.
No, of course not.
That would be
It would
detrimental.
fall apart in seconds.
Yeah.
According to these notes in the later Quintus Silmarillion, dwarf women are also given the masculine indicator of beards and cannot, quote, be discerned by those of
Well,
other.
at least we can
Oh,
say
that's sexist. Why are beards masculine?
I was
You
gonna say,
can
man,
clearly see that dwarf women have them.
they're really anti-modern day talking points.
The race, be it in feature or in gait or in voice. Not even permitted their own physical form, female dwarves are
Well,
the
you-
invisible men of
it's the-
Tolkien's legendarium. Denied acknowledgement or recognition, they are situated on a border that separates self.
Well, I mean, they're not invisible. We know they exist.
And
Because they-
also, why the fuck would you assume they don't have their own form? They have the dwarf form, right?
well, that's not their own because then they share it with the men.
Yeah, okay, but it's not like the men dwarves are the default, let's say. Well, they are because they're more numerous, but
They presume they are.
yeah, but that's again from the perspective of this weird idea that women are the second sex, right? As Simone de Beauvoir says.
Look at you and your fancy French.
Self and not self.
That's just the name.
But again, this does not mean that they are entirely without
That's how you said
agency.
it.
Tolkien tells us that not only can dwarf women choose not to marry, but many also choose to be childless, thus implying that neither sex puts greater emphasis on reproduction. As dwarf women,
I don't see how a woman saying "I don't really care if I have a kid or not" means that the man's not horny. Like, I don't understand how that works. It's like, I don't have any proclivities towards procreation because a woman says she doesn't want to have a child.
Yeah, but why would that necessarily be? I mean, it's horrible for the survival of the dwarf species, I
How
guess.
many crazy cat ladies try to get laid but don't want kids?
Yeah, that's probably a number.
I
don't
didn't
know.
pick a number because it's too high as it is. But one is too many. But the entire thing of like their identity.
But this is phrased as bad, right? That the dwarves don't want to have children. I thought this was supposed to be a good thing nowadays.
The dwarf women choose to be childless.
Yeah.
They also choose not to get married. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but
that's why the population of dwarves is so freaking low.
Mm-hmm. But also, isn't that supposed to be a good thing in today feminism?
It should be. But because they have that, but they're not being shouted from the rooftops because they should be on every dwarf advert all the way down to the Mithril Mines.
But dwarves don't do adverts.
Yes, they do. They advertise with their beards. What's wrong with you?
No, you could barely call that an advert.
Dwarves can spot a dwarf woman from a mile. Everybody else who can't.
and have this choice with marriage and child them, it becomes plain that they're not merely valued for the.
It doesn't matter about the reproductive qualities of species that aren't doing anything related to necessarily expressively explained reproduction practices. Like,
also, why does it matter that a few dwarves don't want children? Why would the the female dwarves not still be seen as valuable by the male dwarves,
Well,
even
the reason
though there is
they
a
would be
significant number?
valuable is because they don't attribute anything to society. They're not procreating, and they're not creating a stable.
No, but that's just a few of the female dwarves.
I know, but I'm saying that's why those particular dwarves.
Yeah, but female dwarves in general would still be seen with the same value.
In general, yes, a female dwarf is of great value to male dwarves, hands down. But
Mhm.
a specific one saying, "I don't want to get married and I don't want to have kids," because again, in their culture, they would get married to have kids because that's the normal kind of way to do it. Like we know that dwarves, like elves, get one spouse for life. But elves,
Well, do we definitely know that there's no exceptions?
it's already been mentioned in Tolkien's letters and stuff.
Oh, okay.
We've already covered it. You just weren't paying
Fair
attention. But no, like elves, like they die, get reborn, and they're still married to them.
Yeah, but that's because they don't really die, right?
It's recycling, but
They're just sort of teleported to the other side of the world.
Is that the spirits are bound, is how it happened. Marriage was a sacred idea, so for elves, dwarves, and humans, marriage was the system by which they would reproduce.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not the hookup culture. So that wouldn't help.
It didn't exist back then even, so.
I mean, it might if you're a feminist and you can read between the lines.
Stereotypical gender role. But why then are they so hidden from view?
Because on average, it's still the case, you fucking moron.
Not enough of them to do anything. What are they going to do? Join the front lines? Are you trying to create a dwarf class of shield maiden equivalents that are on the front lines just Vikinging it on? Like what is the point of having them? Again, a male dwarf and a female dwarf, which one's going to be better for war? Well, the males. Why? Because their stature is probably going to be a little bit sturdier. They can probably lift a little bit more. Not saying that the dwarf women are weak, but they won't be at the same tier as a male dwarf.
Mm-hmm. And also, you don't want to lose the women in war.
Well, if there are women who are refusing.
Well, okay, yeah, those are disposable, I guess.
They're just as disposable as the males that go to war.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like society treats men.
That's equality. Wow.
That's true equality. Oh man, I'd have so much fun with a Q&A session for this.
Here it might be useful to look to de Beauvoir's thoughts on complicity.
No, because she's an idiot. Why don't you look at that?
Simone de Beauvoir offers many examples of the ways in which women can be complicit in reinforcing what she refers to as their own unfreedom, due to socialization, internalized misogyny, and, importantly, the ways in which
I absolutely hate de Beauvoir.
Internalized misogynists?
No, because she is the very core idea behind feminism, right? Her work is absolutely super important to the whole woke stuff. It's the foundation on which it's built.
Situation and coercive social setting can dictate complicity either through necessity or through learned compliance. Long-standing habit, she explains, can keep women's rights from being correctly manifested, as society is inherently unequal and keeps women in an existential otherness in which she is a passive object to a man's active subject.
But they don't even understand that back in the day, women were not just slaves to the men.
And he does not in relation to her. She is the inessential in front of the essential.
But you read the wrong lines.
If we apply this thinking to Tolkien's dwarf women, we can see that there is a question to be asked then about their position within their own culture, especially in terms of identity. With the similarity in appearance to male dwarves and the lack of emphasis on the traditionally female role of mother, how do dwarf women identify themselves?
As dwarf women.
Well, that can't be the case. That's not what modern women do. They don't.
No, but do we care about modern women, though?
Not really, but...
So, opinion discarded. Done.
That was quick.
Yeah.
Arthur Cram, in a discussion of de Beauvoir's ideas on positions of self, defines identity as pertaining to, quote, one's individuality, indeed to the lack of sameness of one's character, as these traits express themselves in a variety of different times and situations. However, the only identity the dwarf women have that is accessible by the reader is constructed for them only through Tolkien's notes in Appendix A and the History of Middle-earth series.
Yeah, because
it's significant
the Lord
that
of
these
the Rings never went to the dwarf home
outside the narrative.
Well, the reason he did that, or didn't do that, is because he's obviously racist towards dwarf women.
Okay, that's fair. Maybe racist to dwarves in general, because we did see the elf
really hates dwarf women because he didn't have any named ones.
But we never went to the Iron Hills or
the Blue Mountains.
The Blue Mountains, yeah.
Lonely Mountain.
The Lonely Mountain after The Hobbit, but because before there weren't any dwarves there, so
they came from the Iron Mountains and the Blue
Iron Hills, yeah.
Iron Hills and Blue Mountain. Sorry, I just blended this together.
Second sex. De Beauvoir discusses such loss of identity and refers to it as the feminine lack, the negative space against which the masculine identity.
See, the feminine lack isn't that they lack being feminine; it's the lack of females in something.
No, I don't think that works.
That's literally just what it said. It's the feminine lack. The women are still there; they're still feminine.
No, but it's the idea that they lack things to set themselves apart in individual identity from men.
I mean, besides the obvious biological.
I mean, yeah, but they don't care about it. It's
of course they don't.
Identity differentiates itself. In appearance, male and female dwarves are so similar that this is not offered as a way to distinguish between them.
7 of 9.
Instead, the reader may recognize the figure of the male dwarf by, for example, the fact that he goes out into the world. In other words, one gender...
No, the female dwarves also sometimes go out.
Rarely, but...
Yeah, but you can't tell because they look like men.
Well, yes. No, but what we're saying is that they're implying that you can't identify one because they don't go out. And it's like, but the other ones around them can identify them. Like Tolkien explicitly states that the dwarf men know who the dwarf women are. Well, then they've been identified. Congratulations. But if they're different to another culture, it's because the other culture hasn't experienced it. And we know why
they both experience it because they keep them secrets and safe.
With Gandalf warning them.
Yes.
Gender may be determined by what the other is not. Jenny Robinson follows Judith Butler's theories on this particular point when she makes the argument.
Judith Butler, that's a good source.
Quote, produced in the performative reiteration of culturally specific understandings.
Judith Butler, by the way, is the central figure.
In her essay, Sex and Gender in Simone de Beauvoir's Second Sex, Judith Butler understands de Beauvoir's famous assertion that, quote, one is not born, but rather becomes a woman, as enabling a differentiation between the terms sex and gender.
Butler, I mean, we're not even looking at Tolkien anymore. This is just gender ideology that we're being
towards more radical understanding
of gender. That Middle-earth was filled with gender ideology, and Tolkien
one
just
must still
didn't let
question
us
how the
know
dwarf women are able to identify as female.
It was there. He just didn't
offered them to
talk
enable
about
the
it.
formulation of such an understanding of gender. The only identity offered to Tolkien's dwarf women, therefore, is constructed through simple biology. They are female. They may bear children. We know they do that.
Yeah, but obviously, what dwarf women are female and bear children, yes.
It causes them to be read as having one common identity.
This person failed what we call biology class.
Clearly. Then again, the whole gender ideology does not know what biology is.
Yeah.
Identity, a problem that Butler highlights in her essay Gender Trouble. If one is a woman, she declares, quote, that surely is not all one is. The term fails to be exhaustive, not because a pre-gendered person transcends the specific
pre-gendered person doesn't exist,
but because gender is not always constituted coherently or consistently.
Well, to be fair,
in different
pre-gender
historical
is before you're conceived.
Yeah, but you don't exist then, so there's not a person there.
That's pre-gendered. It didn't say pre-gendered person.
No, I'm pretty sure she said pre-gendered person. See, it's right there in the sentence.
Which
A
one?
pre-gendered, in quotation mark, person. Okay, fair enough. I suppose they don't consider unborn children that have been conceived as people. So, yeah, this tracks, I guess.
Catholic doctrines on the point of conception.
Well, no, but this is feminist propaganda, right? So they
Be confused here, people.
Context, and because gender intersects with racial, class,
It does
ethnic,
not.
and regional modalities of discursively constituted identities.
That's
Reducing the identity of dwarf women to gender denies them any other characteristics that may offer individuality, rather than a collective signifier.
Yeah, but see, we don't meet any individual dwarf women.
Might
So
enable the
all we
reader
know is the generic
personality
traits associated with the group.
We know they exist. We know they have traits. We know some of those traits. We know that they do some things and they don't do other things.
Yeah, but this person here is complaining that because that's all we have, we can't say anything about individual dwarf women.
Because they're not in the plot.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
not part of the plot. That's why they're not being mentioned. Like you could say Thorin, son of the mom, but it wouldn't help further the plot.
Actually, you would say son of the father.
I know. I was just getting there. Thank you, good sir, for stealing my thunder. They
You're
follow
welcome.
the genealogy of the male side specifically. Like that's historical. Like go look up genealogies from back in the ancient history. They're almost always completely male to the male to the male to the male to the male because they were considered the patriarchs and the heads of their families.
Mhm.
And that's you'd be known as the son of this. Like Johnson, it just means son of John.
Yeah.
Like that's literally what it means.
Kind of a boring surname, though.
Well, I mean, yes, Smith's pretty worse though.
True.
You're named after function. I'm the blacksmith. You're Smith.
But like at the point where you had to make it official, right? At some point, they had to officially decide, oh, this is what we now want our surname to be. You could have chosen anything. Why would you go for, oh yeah, Johnson, sure.
Position, behaviour, or features. If, as Anouk Nayak and Mary Jane Kahili contend, quote, identity is a type of doing that is only made manifest at the point of action, then this is something to which dwarf women can have little claim.
Yeah, because we don't see any fucking
their location
idiots.
within dwarf culture and the resulting interpretations of dwarf gender norms.
Oh, you're giving her way too much credit with that idiot comment.
Well, I mean,
That's insulting to idiots.
good point.
This is the most limiting factor. As Butler
At least idiots have the capacity to be stupid.
asserts, quote, the limits to gender
This is a doctor.
Oh,
The-
yeah, no, that does make it worse.
a
Oh
lived
my god,
interpretation of a
I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
At least idiots have the decency to not have a doctorate.
anatomy seem less restricted by anatomy itself than by the weight of the cultural institutions which have conventionally interpreted anatomy.
This whole thing means nothing, by the way.
Interpret anatomy. Anatomy is anatomy. It's what
Well,
it
you
is.
can interpret it as in figure out, oh, this looks like it might do this.
Or you could just go, oh, look, it does this.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
You don't have to.
But you can't do that with a fictional species.
Or it can do this. How do we interpret that? It moves, you nincompoop.
The dwarf woman,
Like,
silent,
I know that there's probably like the deeper philosophical or scientific logical reasoning behind like interpretation, but we call that
Also, this is transphobic because they're angry that the dwarf women look like men.
well, we already know they're sexist, racist, a whole bunch of other words.
Yeah, no, sure.
They're all the buzzwords they claim we are. Ironically.
through lack of representation in the narrative, and hidden
We
by
still have
means
8
of
minutes to go.
You know what
Fuck.
they don't have in this representation? Can you guess? What do they not have in the Lord of the Rings Tolkien Legendarium world?
Dwarf women.
No, they have those.
No, what are we talking about?
They don't
Context?
have mer women.
What?
They don't have female unicorns.
They
They
don't?
don't have female harpies.
What? Why not? That's ridiculous.
Exactly. Name one female.
Where's all the diversity? Where's that
Exactly.
part of the which video is it? Let's see.
Pull up the specificist. Which video?
Let's see.
We'll find it eventually, but
Yeah. It's the second one about indigeneity, identity, and anti-racism. Probably. I don't know.
don't worry, we'll get to that one next time.
enforced physical disguise, therefore suffers almost.
They don't have a flying spaghetti monster in this story. I feel underrepresented as an Italian.
Total loss of identity in the Middle-earth legendarium. With no sense of self except in relation to male dwarves, she cannot say, I am here. Only he is here. I'm elsewhere.
He doesn't.
No,
have
that's ridiculous. That makes no sense. Of course she can say I am here. And of course she can identify herself as not related to the male dwarves. Just because they look the same doesn't mean one half doesn't exist.
I'm just imagining a dwarf woman next to a dwarf man. They look very similar to everyone.
No, they look identical to you.
I said to everyone but dwarves. But
Okay, fair enough.
they go and they say, "Hi, Gimli. Hi. Hi, I don't know, Sarah. Hi." It's like
No. It's also hi. Yes,
it's just
because
like,
they have the same voice.
they share the same voice.
Well, not the exact same voice for every dwarf.
Read between the lines, Sage. Can't you see what's not there?
But they have the same. They have indistinguishable voices from men.
Where
Well, male dwarves, not men, but yes.
Well,
she's not merely marginalized, she's also effectively excluded from the narrative. The dwarf woman is the most
You're so unprepared to be scientific in this.
contained of all the
my
females of
I
Middle Earth,
did too much
a
science
mother
already.
by her own race. If gender differences are socially or culturally constructed,
But they're not.
that culture places constraints on one gender's ability to create individual identities.
That's ridiculous.
We don't know if they're a marketplace
The
shop.
male dwarves can have individual identities, so why wouldn't the women dwarf be able to do them?
Because misogyny.
Yeah, okay. True.
Yeah.
True.
You're not
Then this
picking up
may
what
go
she's putting
some
down.
way to explain the invisibility of the dwarf women of Middle Earth.
Actually, if they're invisible, couldn't they just go steal a whole bunch of stuff from everyone else?
They call these beards.
They're not beards. That's like, I mean,
And they're also implementing black dwarves, which doesn't even make sense. Because they're underground all the freaking time. Why would they have that much ability? What?
yeah.
And I don't even know what the Indian looking dwarf is, but
The Indian, I mean, you mean the one on the right, all the way?
yeah, the Indian looking one.
And I wouldn't say that looks Indian, but maybe
Looks more
yeah.
than anything else. But
I mean,
like,
I suppose you could say the jewelry style is Indian. Maybe.
yeah, I don't know if the dreads make it Indian, but I don't understand. Like, I get the cosplay aspect, and I think that's fine.
At least get a proper beard. What is this?
Well, I mean, it's like
My Crusader Kings 3 mod does better than this.
I understand that people want to like, oh, I want to be a dwarf, and like say you're African American or from Africa.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly reasonable.
It's like go ahead and cosplay it.
Right.
Nobody cares if you cosplay it. Especially, I mean, if you're going from any like Warhammer, the Age of Sigmar dwarves. I don't even know what they're supposed to be like or whatever.
No idea.
They might have dark-skinned ones. I don't know. Dungeons and Dragons.
But actually, if they're anything similar to the fantasy battle dwarves from Warhammer, then they're all white.
okay, but my point is that there might be another group of dwarves out there somewhere that has black dwarves.
And also, they probably have 50% red hair.
Yeah, that's probably true. But I mean, black hair, brown hair, red hair. There's probably a large variable across there.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is that there's probably some form of entertainment or lore in somewhere that has black dwarves, and it's fine. Like, have black dwarves, but you don't put things like that inside of whatever.
Yeah, not in the actual canon stuff.
Yeah, like if somebody's
stuff that's supposed to be canon, which obviously isn't if you put black dwarfs in.
Well, if you go to a con and you see a dwarf, a person cosplaying as a dwarf and saying
any official material should not have black dwarfs.
The official material cannot be adjusted because of modern sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
However,
but fan stuff is perfectly reasonable.
Yes, it's perfectly reasonable. Or if
but they must have better beards. This is unacceptable.
The beards are unacceptable. You fail as a dwarf woman because you do not have the proper beard.
I mean, my beard wouldn't even be enough for that.
It's more of a gnome. Yeah, you don't have a beard.
Not good enough for a dwarf. I used
to have a beard down here, so I had to shave it off. But to my shame, pun intended. And then she just pauses.
What even is that?
Thank you so much.
Hey. Say what?
The middle one it's only that little bit in the chin here.
Well, it's right here, and then it comes up at a very low.
Yeah, okay, but that's like the ugliest type of beard you could possibly go for. Well, I suppose the one on the left is slightly worse.
There's a lot of them to go with. I barely call that. I call it wisps of hair. But
yeah, that's like 3 hairs here, and then 2 here.
Yeah.
Done.
Let's see.
Also, wait a moment. We're on slide 9, and we still have I also don't hear anything anymore. Hello? So I guess we're going to read subtitles now. Oh, there is a Q&A. Oh, that's interesting. It's really annoying to read the subtitles though. Is this even a question?
Opinions of the feminine.
Yeah, so we didn't hear anything since the time you were muted. So
is actually words in Tolkien's mouth.
That shouldn't make.
That
shouldn't do that. But
then again, there was nothing really mentioned there anyway. But it does seem we have a Q&A at the end of the video. So
the 2-minute Q&A.
No, it starts now. They're now doing a Q&A bit.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to hear that. I had stepped away. Sorry. Oh, first question. Here we go.
Hey, so let's dig straight in.
This guy sounds like such a beta.
Okay, so the first question then asks, do you think that this problematic portrayal of women is due to the fact that Tolkien was a British male writing about medieval fantasy in the early 20th century? So is it perhaps the contextual point that is making this problematic?
He keeps talking.
Well, I think as I referred to partway through the talk, we can understand some.
Well, to be fair, if you want the full question to answer properly, it's necessary.
Of Tolkien's ideas on female-male gender roles through his own letters, definitely the ones to his son Michael, in which he discusses his opinions of the feminine, if you like. But what I don't want to do here with this talk is actually put words in Tolkien's mouth.
Maybe you should have not done the last 9 slides then.
Maybe they shouldn't have done the last whole freaking set of things.
Yeah, that's included.
Well, that's more than 9 slides.
Yeah, okay, but I mean,
because I think that doesn't actually get us anywhere.
You should have thought of that before you wasted everyone's time.
If we look at the way in which female characters are portrayed, it isn't simple.
it is perfectly reasonable how they're portrayed in The Lord of the Rings.
She's arguing like it's this them being portrayed. It's like, but you're arguing they're not being portrayed at all. So then what's the freaking
No,
point?
no, that's the problem. There's not enough women. It's not diverse enough.
And if there's
No,
more,
wait, that's not right, because it is diverse. Because Gondor is entirely trans, I heard.
but it's all trans women. There are no women.
No, but trans women are women. Did you know?
Yeah, they're women, but like they're not women. There are no biological women in Gondor.
That's transphobic. Please don't do that anymore.
Gondor's trans is because they're all men, but they needed women, so they had some men become women, so they could have women.
Bigots.
Are you saying Gondor's bigot?
What? No.
Such a diverse range
Bigot?
of female figures in the text.
Now,
Some
does she mean female figures, or does she mean
No.
female figures like Joan of Arc?
of whom are portrayed as or, kind of Valkyrie-esque figures with great power,
Valkyrie?
and some of whom less.
Valkyria, like,
Why the fuck would you pronounce that as Valkyrie?
because she's British and retarded.
No, British don't pronounce it that way.
The retarded ones do.
Okay, maybe the retarded ones, but
So, everything from Melians.
and the issue is being retarded, not being British.
I don't know. They seem kind of similar.
Well, no, there's a lot of overlap, sure,
It's pretty heavy overlap.
but it's not full overlap.
I mean, it's like a 97% overlap.
This is not part of the overlap, at least.
Is it though? Is
I'm
it?
pretty sure it's not.
Has their place.
I need sources, good sir.
Each speaks to something that Tolkien understood in his own experience of.
Okay, the answer to this question needs a whole other freaking sliders.
Mhm.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Women.
I was trying to understand what she was saying just by reading the subtitles because it got muted and it made no sense then. It still doesn't now, but that's a separate issue.
That makes no sense.
Experience of female characters. But again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. This is what I see in the text, in the way in
Because
which
you're
he
fucking
portrays
blind.
or choosing not to portray certain figures.
Because you don't ever go to the place where the dwarves live.
I'd say, yeah, it's definitely a point where we have
That's
a
the point.
tendency to
Yeah,
jump to
that's
context.
correct.
Right.
It's a wrong point.
The kingdom
And they do have a tendency to jump to context that's not actually there.
But we never visited the kingdom of moles. You know, all the moles that burrow through the ground. We
They have
never.
a kingdom.
Well, obviously.
I thought they were anarchists.
Well, they're anarchists when it comes to other people's property, not theirs.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
What do you think all the sinkholes drop everything?
Yeah, no, that's why I guess they do all those molehills in the garden.
Why is she not complaining about the representation of female moles? Why did Tolkien not visit the kingdom of moles?
No, wait, but they'd look identical to male moles as well, so
What?
female moles are also indistinguishable from male moles at a glance for regular people.
Depends on what you're glancing at, I suppose, but yes.
Right,
The
yeah.
moles are basically
Has a place.
done.
Yes, but my point wasn't how you tell them apart as much as that they're never, ever, ever mentioned in all of the Legendarium.
Yeah,
They don't have a play. They don't play a role. Do bees? Yes, bees play
bees
a role
do.
in The Hobbit.
Do they?
Therefore, yeah, because of everyone's favorite skin changer. Beowulf.
Oh, yeah, he has bees, that's right.
And it's presumed.
But
that
are
the
they
Hobbit
named
Empire.
bees?
Yes, but he doesn't tell us their names because it'd be rude.
No. We don't know the names, so we have a severe lack of female bee names in The Lord of the Rings.
Female bees just are.
No.
It's Queen
No,
Bee.
no female bees are named, so it's a problem.
Well, they are named. They're just not told to us.
Yeah, but that's the same issue as we have here with the dwarves.
I know. So why is it a big deal?
I don't know.
It absolutely has a place. But if we stop and say,
Context has its place, but
let's ignore all of it and put in our own.
we're making a fundamental error.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
okay, I want Tom Shippey to respond to this. I want to get Tom Shippey on this freaking channel so freaking hard.
Do you think he will come to this place?
No, I'm not worthy of his attention.
Yeah,
But-
no, exactly. What were you thinking?
The reason I'm not worthy of his attention is because of you.
Yeah.
You Europeans. I think he is one, but I think
He
he's
is
British.
probably also. I'm going to look it up.
He's at
It's far
2%.
more interesting than this video.
But like, I just be like, oh, so do you think we can understand Tolkien? Well, of course we can understand it. Why? Because there's context, explanation, sourcing, all the things he puts together, planning, and like, well,
He
I
is
think
British, but he was born apparently in India.
I mean, a lot of Brits were because the Brits controlled
Yes,
India.
fair enough.
Jeez, where have you been?
in talking about the dwarf women, like I said, I am not claiming Tolkien is a misogynist. I'm saying
But you're
here is
strongly
the
implying it, though.
with these
I'm
female
not saying it,
characters
but I'm saying it.
and their lack of appearance within the text. I think it's really important to have some grasp of
I
context.
think it's
absolutely.
sexist to assume that just because they look the same, the
Have some grasp of context, not full context. Some.
that's reaching a bit, I think.
No, she literally said it, to have some grasp of context.
Yeah, but I think some grasp is more than she has.
No, I don't think she has any.
Yeah. So
She's
this is
grasping at whispers of
not correct.
Never to say I
She was saying in general and reference.
Do we get a second question on this Q&A bit? Probably not, right?
There might be one more. There's 4 minutes left.
know
We'll see.
what Tolkien meant here. I know what he was thinking, and mine is that.
Because so far she has said 3
Because
times
I know
as
what
answer to the
Tolkien
same question.
was.
I don't want to put any words in Tolkien's
It's
mouth.
just
He's
one of
not a
those
misogynist,
errors, I
I
think. Which is one of the things that's
Make
great
sure you
about this
understand that
particular
you
seminar,
want to do that.
is that here we have a real understanding of
Wow.
the fact that these
Press
are
X to doubt.
which we are all viewing the
I've been
same
using that
text.
phrasing a lot lately.
But we all get to see that text in the way that we wish to view it. And
This is the key word. They see
people
it in the way they wish to view it,
different
rather than
background.
how it actually
this
is.
is what we get, which I think is great.
That's because these people live. Oop, my hair's all over the place. Woo.
Yeah, it's. I don't know what you're doing.
This is Richard Weatherman. These people live in a land of nobody knows because the rest of us are sane, at least to some extent.
Yeah.
These people have no sanity,
Mhm.
not even a shred of it, not even the wisps of an imagination of sanity. So this is painful, dude.
I know.
So painful.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at this monster. Freaking 1656 is the time.
Mhm.
Freaking military time, like a monster.
Well, now everyone is saying he's that.
No, we use 12-hour here, not 24.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous.
No, we only use it here because of either military time or because you retarded Europeans. You guys can't count to 12 twice, apparently.
No, but I mean, at least we can count to 24.
Oh, we can. We can count much higher than you.
Sure.
Very well answered. Thank you. Okay, so second question.
Second question.
What do you think is the context
That's
of
the same guy.
Fëanor?
No, because this isn't online. So they have a person receiving the questions and asking the questions. It's like if we were to do this and somebody asked a question in the comments, but we had somebody
Why
designated
would you need the second guy? Just read the question yourself.
because she's a speaker, not the moderator. This is a
There is
whole.
no moderator.
This is a seminar. the person who's giving the seminar does not ask themselves questions.
No, but they can say, "Oh, look, there's questions from, I don't know, the chat," or however they did this.
They have a sound team. They have a room. They have the person who set the room up for all these other people to be in. All that kind of stuff. Those are the people that ask questions. This is not abnormal, dude.
Yeah, no, fair. But they could have spared some. Well, they don't care about saving money, right?
Person. It's probably the person from Signum who's already going to be there anyway.
Being so reticent to accept new language in relation to their traumatic experiences.
Sorry, wait, what's this
I'm
question?
not sure that question's for me.
Yeah, we'll go back since you had to interrupt it rudely.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Reticent to accepting new. Exactly. Very well answered. Thank you.
Very
Not
well.
very well answered. It's very badly answered.
Okay, so second question. What do you think is the context about the sun?
She just said some grasp of context is okay, but that's her whole stance. So why are you saying what do you think of the context? And it doesn't matter what the context is. She doesn't care. Context.
So
Of Fëanor.
Fëanor.
Fëanor is what he's saying, but it's Fiona on the text.
No, but also he doesn't pronounce it correctly.
He's a Brit. He can't do it correctly.
No, they should be, because Tolkien is also a Brit.
Letters in their freaking language. Of course they can't do it correctly.
Or being so reticent to accepting new language in relation to their traumatic experiences.
What?
I'm not sure that question's for me.
No, okay, sorry.
A great question.
What is that question even?
For a totally different seminar.
Also,
Indeed, right.
they weren't reticent. They accepted the Sindarin language. They just kept speaking Quenya at home.
No, hold on. There's a whole nother seminar on language. That's what that question was for.
Yeah, but even I'm answering it in that context. Because Fëanor, he dies. He has some sons that now are in Beleriand. But the King of Doriath, who loans the country to them.
Pre-sunk or post-sunk?
Pre-sunk, of course. Otherwise, they wouldn't live there, right?
I mean, hey, they could be the first mermen. And then they could have
True. Wait, no, those are not mentioned. That's a problem. We don't have enough.
There's no representation for mermen.
Yeah. Wow.
Sandrist!
No, but also the sons of Fëanor accepted the demand from the King of Doriath to speak only Sindarin while in Beleriand.
You want to see how bad Fëanor's name has been abused? First, it started at Fiona. Look at the chat. See what it says now.
Fëanor.
That's how it's spelled.
Actually, funnily enough, if you put a D behind that name, it's one of our local football clubs.
Fëanor.
Feyenoord.
Yeah. So it sounds retarded as it is.
Yeah, it's a pretty stupid name.
I didn't read up on them before, Jim.
I was like, why am I saying this?
Why are you saying?
Here we go. Right. Do you think an argument could be made for the dwarves actually being a gender that is genderless if they are indistinguishable from the male dwarves?
No, because gender is not something you can just
already established male and female dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
They're genderless to everyone who's not a dwarf because they don't know the difference because I didn't say them.
Yeah, and that's why they spring out of holes in the ground.
What?
That's why they repopulate by getting out of holes in the ground.
That's not getting out of holes. It's springing out of holes in the ground.
Yeah, but some of them might not be as active. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if they're brand new dwarves, I don't see why they have achy old bones.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good point.
About them,
they're just naturally born with like full gray beards,
wrinkles. Yeah, exactly. Well, they do get born with the beards, so that's true.
It's my beard.
Venturing outside would prove that idea wrong, but then dwarves by themselves also rarely leave their mountain homes without reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When did it say dwarves? Pretty sure it said female dwarves.
No, I think the question is something about them being agender, and then the question sort of pivoted to, oh, but maybe the women staying at home is not as bad because the males also
The
stay home.
dwarves. They said the dwarves is the proper noun.
Mhm.
Talking about the dwarves being proper genderless or whatever. I don't know whatever the frick proper genderless means, but being genderless because they don't leave their house for a reason. So they're encompassing the entire dwarven race. Don't leave their homes. Like they have merchants, they travel, they fight wars, they go all over the place.
Yeah, but ideally they also want to stay in their mountain holes.
Yes, they're comfortable craft and they can mine and they can do all that type of stuff. Sure, but that doesn't mean they never leave. Like they have Dale right outside of the Lonely Mountain. You don't think the dwarves?
Okay, but maybe the Dale people come to the mountain instead, right?
They've got to walk a short distance. I think they can leave their house for 5 minutes.
No, that's way too far.
I mean, did the humans just charge them extra for delivery fees, like an Uber or a DoorDash?
Maybe.
I mean, they've got
the can see business in there.
I mean, that's really interesting. That's a really.
Why didn't Tolkien mention DoorDash? Why
yeah. But also the concept of agender is stupid. Yeah, well, I'm just going to leave it at that.
When applied to humans or other sentient beings like humans.
Specifically when applied to anything mammalian.
Fair enough. But who says the dwarves and elves are mammalian?
They're basically humans, but
I
different.
don't remember Eru Iluvatar coming up with a dictionary or an encyclopedia or a biological textbook that states that dwarves or elves or orcs are mammalian.
Well, no, we're pretty sure elves are.
That's just because you have some grasp of the context, good sir.
Okay, fair enough.
Question. I think we can point to Tolkien's discussion.
I should add, but
of someone like Dis as the mother of.
Dis.
But
Yeah,
of course, as we know,
they're dissing all of these characters.
Obviously, everyone who has even a slight grasp
we can't say that it's only one gender that can give birth. Here we have.
Because that's true.
Yeah.
That scientifically is true.
Well, I mean, gender is a bit of a weird word.
How so?
Because it didn't exist until some random idiots started to make it up for
fair enough.
the purposes of a gender being different from sex.
For the purposes of retardation, yes.
Yes.
Have, and I don't want to get.
That's one way to say it. Yeah.
I'm trying to.
We're like less than 2 minutes. Let's just get through this.
Make sure I get the language correct. We know that various bodies
That's the whole
are
point.
capable of giving birth. Okay, so we do have that. If we want to make the argument that
various bodies can give birth,
I think we've got one of the best cases to make here that we have a race in which there's such a lack of differentiation between the two that the blurring of that boundary.
There's not a lack. It's a lack to those who are not of. That's it. Like it's.
But even then, if you get the dwarves naked, not sure if you want to, but you can clearly then distinguish the difference, right?
You don't. Oh gosh.
Is almost
actually, if you think about it, there's 3 relationships I think in all of the Tolkien Legendarium that involve interracial.
I think only 2. Well, oh no, we count Aragorn and Arwen as well, right? 2 in history, 1 in the present, let's say. You have Tuor and Idris, I think.
Yeah, Tuor and Idris. You have
Luthien and Beren.
And then Arwen and Aragorn.
And Arwen and Aragorn.
Only 3 announced, and they're always of like high-profile cases.
No, they're the only ever.
Well, yes, but I'm saying they're the only recorded, which means that any others that exist, you'd have to have something to provide.
No, but they're the only recorded, sure, but they're also the only ever.
Well, they're the only ever because they're the only recorded. Yes, my point.
No, but it's exceptionally special.
I know. I'm agreeing with you.
But then why would you stop me from saying that it's the only ever?
Because anytime there's a history involved, you could say, sure, you could argue that there is another fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever. However, in order to do so, you would have to provide evidence to do so, and you have no evidence, therefore they are not being. That's the whole point.
Okay, I'm pretty sure Tolkien said they were the only ever, so...
Then there's your evidence. Congratulations.
I don't know the source. I don't know if it's actually true.
So your sources trust me, bro?
I'm 85% sure.
I agree.
Said that.
They're the only ones. But my point about the whole thing, before we get too off track, my whole point was that they find exquisite beauty in each other. For whatever reason.
Yeah, sure. Maybe. I don't know.
It's always
I'm not a mind reader.
It's always a man, like a human man, male, and always a elvish female woman.
Yeah, I consider that probably a Tolkien self-insert problem.
Well, that was only for Beren and Luthien.
Yeah, but maybe also that got extended into the others a bit.
What he based himself.
Yeah, I know. But there might also still be some leftover of that in the other two.
I mean, it logically makes sense because attraction from a sexual intimacy aspect typically is related to physical attraction, physical beauty. And people like things that are beautiful typically.
And of course, elven women are much more beautiful than human ones, right? I guess.
Yes. They have much more. They're more slender, long. What's the term for long-limbed? Not longevity. That's life. Long-angled. I don't know. They're more lithe. They're more lithe.
Sure.
And that's a level of beauty that.
And of course, humans have beards, so that's a thing in their favor, I guess.
To be fair, we don't know if Beren or Tuor.
Well, okay, but they could have. Aragorn definitely not. But
technically, we don't know. I mean, technically, at any point in time, Aragorn could have grown a beard. It's just when we first were introduced.
Could he though? I'm not sure, because he has a part elven bloodline.
He's a Númenórean.
Yeah.
Númenóreans had beards.
Well, Númenóreans, but Aragorn specifically has in the bloodline descendants from elves.
All of Númenóreans are descended from elves.
No.
Yes, because the first Númenórean was Elrond's brother. And
yeah, but it's not one Númenórean that spawned the entire race. Elros became the leader, but all the men, all the Edain that fought in the War of Beleriand went to Númenor. They're not all descended from, for example, Luthien and Idris.
So which part of Isildur's line was?
Idris and, well, Luthien half.
But Idris and Tuor...
Idris and Tuor gave rise to Eärendil, and Beren and Luthien to Elwing. Elwing and Eärendil together gave us Elrond and Elros. Elros was the first king of Númenor.
Yeah.
And from Elros, all of the Númenorian kings descended.
Yes. Yeah.
And Aragorn's in that line somewhere.
But
so Aragorn is descended not just from elves, but also from a Maya.
But he's still a man.
He's still a man, yes, but he has elven blood in it.
But the elven blood doesn't immediately knock out facial hair.
No, but it did have an effect.
It potentially had. We don't know the effect it had on men. We only know it had the effect on elves. But those are also pureblood elves. If you mix something like men, who are notoriously hairy, and then elves, who are notoriously not, and you put them together, you get half as much hairy if you're going off of that. But if you go with the chromosome picture, it has a 1/4 chance of being any of, or 1/4 hairless, 1/4 hair, and then 1/4 mix, or 2/4 mix, half mix, whatever.
Yes, but I mean, I suppose you could argue how strong the elven.
He is described to us as not having facial hair when he's first around.
Mm-hmm.
Almost a whole year passes in this time period.
And he still doesn't have facial hair.
Where does it say that in the next one?
Okay, fair. I don't know a specific one.
Exactly. What
But
happens
if he had a beard, all of a sudden,
to men who don't shave? Exactly, good sir.
if he had a beard, surely it would have been mentioned.
Why?
Because he didn't have a beard at first, and then at the next time someone meets him, it's like, oh, you have a beard. Wow.
But why would they go the next time someone meets him? Oh, you have a beard. Do you randomly go up to somebody and say, "Oh, you have a beard"? No, that's not a point of conversation.
No, but you might mention like, "Oh, I see you changed your hairstyle or whatever." I don't know.
Dwarven women. It is not necessary for the plotline to move forward. It is not. But it is reasonable to assume that a man of human descent, even if he does have elvish blood, still human aspect, can still, without over time, grow hair. Now, in that setting, normally men would grow beards. We don't know if he shaved it right before he meets them. We don't know.
That's fair.
So, in that sense, you assuming that because Elvish line prevents hair, when we already know that Círdan has hair on his face. So,
well, no, but Círdan's like super old.
Aragorn's 87, 88 years old, depending on.
Yeah, but that's young for him, I guess.
Well, depending on how old he's supposed to get to. Was it 5?
I don't know.
He gets a couple 100 years.
I'm sure we know when he dies.
Yes, we have the date. I don't remember what it is, but we do have it available. But the point being is that it's more reasonable that he has facial hair available to him, that he shaves off because he doesn't want to or whatever, which explains the attraction. But it's also explainable that
dies at age 210, so he was like maybe
halfway through his life, 50s essentially, 40s, 50s,
30, 40 maybe.
I'd say 40s, but yes. Because 87 is just shy of 100, and if he's past 200, that's past half his life. So if 100 was normal for humans, then he'd be 50, 40, 50.
Yeah, but 100 isn't normal for humans.
Once you're past the puberty and the age version of it, you would have the capacity to do so. And he's still human, so he's going to grow at a human rate. He's not going to stay a child for 15 years.
I specifically recall there being a lot of discussion about him being able to grow a beard or not.
But that's my point, is that when you get to this point, you go to the philosophical aspect, and the philosophical aspect is it more reasonable than? Well, it's more reasonable that a man of men descent, and they always refer to him as the descent of men, not the descent of elves. It's always referred to as the descent of men. It's reasonable to assume he could grow one.
Yeah, I suppose.
He might not have one when he's introduced to us and the other characters, but that could mean he just shaved it. That's perfect. That's perfectly reasonable. But when you're on the road, shaving is typically difficult, so you'd grow stubble or possibly a light beard, especially if you're traveling a long distance across leagues and leagues and leagues of territory. You're not going to be stopping to worry about your facial when you're chasing Uruk-hai who have your friends captive. That's not on your priority list. Excuse me.
Well, it might be on the priority list still, but like way down on the.
Okay, fair enough. Not high on the priority list. But again, it's reasonable to believe that he didn't have a beard, and that's what Arwen found attractive. I can accept that. I can accept that because elves don't seem to find beards attractive, but maybe they have random 3-offs, you know. Not married.
Could be.
Again, there's also the women who don't marry based off of attraction, which is a strange concept to me, but whatever.
Also, this I forgot what the question was.
Almost complete. Almost.
Anyway, really.
Is those 2 notes in the later questions on Rivion, in the appendices, and that is it.
The genderless dwarves.
Yeah, dwarves being agender or something.
To make that argument, absolutely. I mean,
absolutely not.
As you can see on the slide, for those who can't see on the slide, I have pictures of depictions
dwarfs, but not really because they don't have beards.
clearly feminine faces, but with the masculine indicator of beard.
The kind of beards that dwarves have, most other species, or most of the races, I should say, can't get. Like, I don't think humans could pull off a beard like a dwarf can. Even the oldest.
Well, maybe some.
No. I'm talking like dwarves have beards that like go all the way down to their feet, kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you wait long enough.
Yeah, but it's not going to be like the fullness level. It's not going to be.
Maybe it just doesn't grow as quickly. Sure.
It takes their entire lives to grow it. The dwarf's like, I had this when I was born.
Exactly. Yeah.
But humans have that real blurry between genders. In that a beard is a masculine indicator.
Why?
So yeah.
Better let the drag queens know.
Yeah, why is it a masculine indicator if it's naturally grown on dwarf women?
Fascinating.
No. Oh, hold on. Whatever that is. We don't.
Well, it's done now, so yeah.
The burnt hand teaches us about fire, or
J.R.R.Tolkien created.
It's like the burnt hand teaches us about fire. It's like, or hear me. The thing that catches fire teaches us about fire. It's like,
yeah,
doesn't have to be a hand, but this is, that's a totally different one in the list. But I'm not going to cover that because it's not necessary at the moment. The idea that a beard is masculine, therefore women can't have it, is like, is it for masculine for humans, or is it masculine for dwarves?
For humans, yeah, sure. Not for dwarves.
It doesn't. If it's not for dwarves, then what purpose would it serve?
What do you mean purpose? It's just a beard.
Well, her no. Like her viewpoint is that it's masculine. Well, is it?
Because she can't. She's stuck in her own viewpoint where everything has to be framed from the human reference.
She's stuck in her human supremacist viewpoint on everything. She sees everything from non-humanoid or humanoid but non-human.
This is how you get furries, by the way.
Well, they have beards all over. Dogs can grow beards all over. It's a great song. But like, it just doesn't make sense in any reasonable, logical, particular methodology to be like, well, humans have it as a masculine tendency because male humans. Therefore,
I'm not an expert on the biology.
Have the exact same scenario? That doesn't make sense. Like, they're literally different races. And I consider
also
a million if there would be.
Also, why do we assume? That's an interesting one. That dwarves all look like male dwarves.
It's the beards. Actually, because
Yeah.
all we ever see is male dwarves.
Mhm.
I'm just imagining a female dwarf not having like a full crazy beard like a male dwarf, but a female dwarf has a beard. But then when they go out in public, they're like, all right, we're going to add some extensions, like reconstruct a beard.
I suppose that could be part of the disguise, yeah.
I mean, hypothetically, I mean...
Maybe they also just wear normal female type clothing.
Yeah, that would be a...
Then they switch to male clothing when they go outside, I guess.
I think... I loved when Rings of Power came out and the lady who plays Disa...
Disa, by the way, named as such because the only female dwarf name we have is Dis, so surely they needed to
add a.
Yeah, because you couldn't go to the source for all the other dwarf names and pick a different female name, right?
That's because there's not any other female names apparently.
No, but Tolkien takes all of his dwarven names from the Prose Edda, and there are also a whole bunch of female names in there, including these. So why could you not just go there to pick a fitting female name?
That would imply that they have intellectual intelligence.
True.
And I think we know from their actions and otherwise that they don't have that. But here's the other thing, is that Like
I mean, all of the other named dwarves in the Rings of Power, you have Durin and Durin, right? Disa, Durin, and Durin.
Sounds like a band, Durin and Durin.
Yeah,
but
is there another named dwarf?
All the other Thrain.
Yeah, no, I mean in the Rings of Power.
Isn't Durin giving me the meat and give it to me raw?
That's Durin. Then also you have his father is also Durin.
Whose father was Durin? Whose father's father was Durin? Whose father's father was Durin?
There's officially some other names in there, but you never hear those, I think. So all of the names they chose.
My grandfather's name was Bill.
Yeah. All of the names in Rings of Power for the dwarves are literally Durin and Dis plus A.
Disa Durin.
No.
That's how they came up with the names. Jar Jar Binks translator confirmed.
I want an ending to this video.
Disa, well, we're not quite there, but we're close. We're very, very close. Yeah. I'm gonna wrap it up, but Disa
doesn't have beards, by the way.
The actors have Disa. The Gungans have beards. So Disa's actress was like, "I'm the first female dwarf ever," and I'm like,
"Oh, wait a minute.
We have those on screen. We
have on screen in The Hobbit."
Yes. And I was like, when you
look at the Hobbit, you can't tell the dwarves because they don't have beards. So
well, I mean, half the time I see them from behind the head, so all I see is the back of their head and their outfits. So.
And they're short.
Yes. And actually, it's false. They did have the side beards.
Yeah, but that's
they didn't have full beards, but they actually put effort into something that Peter Jackson touched on. They didn't, and again, that was probably for the audience watching to understand the difference. Because if you don't make the sentence, they're not going to know the reference. And if they don't know the reference, they're like, why are there a bunch of male dwarves in dresses?
That's a good one. But actually, they should have just casted male people for the female dwarves.
Then you're getting into the trans category.
Yeah, but also they should be indistinguishable.
They should be. But again, we were seeing it from inside the dwarves' territory, not as from the outside, from what other people see them as. So that could be a little confusing. Let's not get into that. Let's end the actual recording because it's not necessary. But either way, this lady is off a rocker, and her doctorate is definitely a faulty one because whoever her professor was should not have passed her in the class. Hands down.
Yep, I can agree with that.
I think that's everything, good sir, considering you don't do anything on YouTube.
I don't do anything now.
Except for here.
Yeah, well, maybe every now and then, like once every 10 years or so, I might appear on another stream.
Well, you got another 10 years to go.
Exactly.
And every time you appear on here, it resets that 10 years.
Oh, does it? Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
It's like, dang it, I was so close.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Well.
The entire time my camera was shifting, and that irritates me.
Okay.
But yes. Thank you, sir, for coming on and hanging out. I'd say thank you to Arterian, but he's asleep, and I'd say thank you to Matt, but he abandoned us to go hang out with other people.
Yeah.
What a loser.
What a traitor.
I know, right? But I mean, we did kind of go over time because we all had opinions. But
True. I mean, 3 hours.
We can keep the other one
for a 27-minute video, I guess.
30-minute video, 3 hours. That's a lot of talking. I mean, we definitely did enough transformation to make it not the same. But
I mean, it's still annoying that the Gondor in transition one is not visible.
I'm pretty sure that paper transitioned to non-existence. So
no, but they don't have papers for this.
I'm just saying. I believe the Gondor in transition paper self-deleted.
I think it never existed.
No. It did exist. Obviously, it existed because there was a time for it in 2021. I'm saying, according to like the statistics, it just self-deleted itself.
That seems silly. It should be somewhere on the internet still.
That's how trans people deal with life, dude. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, good point. That I didn't notice that.
That's why it's not healthy.
I'm too pure for this world. So.
No, you're not. I've heard it comes out of your mouth.
Well,
out of the two of us,
we don't talk about those.
No, we do. I just did. Anyway, weaponized autism for the win. But yes.
Wow.
Thanks everybody for hanging out for the pie time because it's 3:14. You know, although by the intro and outro it won't be pie time, so whatever.
Well, you could just cut it off early, I guess.
But yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. We'll hopefully do some more of these at some point. I mean, we will do more of them just at some point. And again, this was not a recent thing, but I'm sure that we'll get more of this when Rings of Power Season 2 comes out from the Tolkien Society, because I can expect nothing less from the high quality of the Tolkien Society that is now, in my opinion, a defunct. Even though they're active, they're defunct in the I don't know, quality. The quality is defunct. But yes, thank you everybody for hanging out, and we'll hopefully have another, I don't know how many, there's like 12 more of these or whatever, something like that.
Another 13.
Another 13. If anybody has Gondor in transition, paper or video, I mean, paper would be great, but video would be even better.
I don't think there is a paper. I think it's just a video.
Well, it was a paper that was submitted and it was presented in.
Where was it submitted?
To the Tolkien Society. The Tolkien Society doesn't have the papers posted on their page. They just have them.
So why would it be public?
I'm not... What? Because people who actually participate in the Tolkien Society might have a copy of it.
Yeah, okay, maybe.
It's a paper, which means
who
it's more
participate in that shit, though?
The Tolkien Society!
Yeah, but they're not in our circle, let's say.
Well, there are people who get things from other people. They have a copy of it or something. That's not
maybe. I guess.
I mean, the same people in Hollywood that rat out Hollywood's bad practices to everybody else. They participate because they have to.
Yeah, but Tolkien Society is hardly a thing you have to participate in, right?
Yeah, but if you're a hardcore Tolkien fan, you like the other stuff that Tolkien Society gives, maybe you have a copy. I'm not saying they do. I'm just saying if anybody has it from when it was originally posted.
Yeah, okay. If they have it would be nice.
Let me know.
But I am convinced that there is only the video, and that the paper never existed.
Well, the paper is what she reads off of, because the 9 slides do not hold.
But maybe that's just the script for the video and nothing else.
That's what papers are. They're scripts.
Yeah, but not. But not made to stand on itself.
Welcome to YouTube. Sorry if I'm loud, guys. I'm naturally loud. It's the Italian. Anyway, thanks
not
everybody.
The American parts?
Huh?
I would have guessed it was the
I'm
American
parts. Because I live in America. I'm not American because my family's from America. Because obviously America was discovered, so I couldn't possibly be from here.
Yeah, no, good point. There's no Native Americans, right?
Well, they're not technically. They're from somewhere else. That's a whole other can of worms we're not getting into. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. Please join us in the Council of Light for another rendition of the wonderful, terrible Tolkien Society renditions of whatever it might be that we cover. I don't even know what the name next one is, but it's probably about burning hands or something.
Are we following the same playlist order?
Probably, but don't watch it ahead of time because I want it to be
okay. Yeah, in that case, it's about applying traumatic stress and ecological frameworks in Tolkien.
I'm getting that just from watching these. I don't know what you're talking about.
Good point.
Anyway, thanks everybody. I know this is like the 5th time I've said that, but Sage loves to cut off everything I say. Yeah. But anyway, thanks everybody.
I can do it another time if you want.
I'm going to interrupt and cow you in the face right now. Anyway, thank you all. And remember, walk in the light, my friends.